Good evening, everyone. I call the regular board meeting to order. All members of the board are present except for Mrs. Van Sythe. Mrs. Beeger, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be advised that in the event of a fire emergency and an evacuation should be necessary, an alarm will sound. Please note all marked emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. At this time, we request that everyone please turn their cell phone and other electronic devices to silent. Thank you. Is there a motion, please, to approve the agenda as presented? Thank you, Dr. Littman. Mrs. Beeger, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Are there any board acknowledgments tonight? All right, great. I will now call on Mrs. Kazmierzak-Bogner to review our public expression format.
Thank you. Welcome to all who are here and those live streaming this regular board meeting. Per policy 1510, the board has set aside 30 minutes for public expression, a time when we invite members of the community to share ideas and concerns with us. We welcome this opportunity to hear from you. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. You will be signaled with a yellow flag at 2.5 minutes so that you may conclude your remarks. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not be engaging in a dialogue with or responding to questions from members of the community this evening. Rest assured, we are listening carefully and we take seriously what you have to say. We would also like to ask that you demonstrate respect for us and for one another by speaking to the issues, giving us ideas, sharing your opinions, and not engaging in any personal attack. Thank you for your cooperation. And thank you to all those who pre-registered for public expression. When I call on you, please step up to the podium and state your name.
Thank you, Mrs. Kazmierzak-Bogner. And I just want to throw out there that we've been informed that YouTube, which is our streaming service, is starting to crack down on providers if they're talking about something that's inaccurate. So if there's false information, false medical information, we could be at risk for losing our YouTube services. So I just want to bring that to your attention. We definitely welcome your freedom of speech. Thank you.
And then our first speaker this evening is Dr. Ramchandra Reddy. Dr. Ramchandra Reddy, are you here? Okay, our second speaker is Mr. Tim Terrell. If you could please state your name before you speak, thank you.
Sure, I'm Tim Terrell. Oh, that echoes bad. Well, sucks going first, but here goes. Welcome, Dr. Brown Hall, to Williamsville, and the new board members as well. Right from the start, I know that you guys put in a ton of time and energy into leading the school district, so that's very much appreciated. To the point that Mrs. Leatherbarrow just made, there were a lot of snickers and smirks because it's kind of interesting how in our culture, like, what is truth? Okay, so a lot of parents, we do hear a lot of things, but there's a lot of smart people out here. And as an example, last year, I did some math using CDC data from their websites directly. And I can share this with the board if they like. But the things that we're told by media and the government at large is misleading. And specifically, if you did the math on 12 to 17-year-olds that got COVID and had to be hospitalized, the rate was 0.002%, actually had to be hospitalized. And using their same data, a vaccinated individual, 12 to 17 years old, adverse effects from the vaccine itself was 0.047, which was 23 times greater probability of a negative effect going into the hospital. That isn't stated anywhere in the mass media, and the government doesn't want to tell you that. And so all I'm speaking to here is there's data out there, and we're being told that we need to make data-driven decisions. So let's look at the numbers as a group, put them in front of everybody, and then we can say, what's the conclusion? Nobody that's intelligent likes to be spoken to and told when there's conflicting information out there, because unfortunately our government is trying to, I'm not conspiracy theory here, but they're trying to, let's say they're trying to do the right thing. And yes, the vaccine is safe and effective at a rate of 0.047 percentage probability that there's something bad happens, but they're just forgetting to tell you that, well, maybe the children are better off not taking the vaccine. So that's one example of using data to make a decision. And I believe strongly that you're going to hear a lot tonight that we don't want to be told something without having the data to back it up and explain why those decisions are made. You'll hear lots of opinions. Let's get down to the data. Let's present the data. And then you'll have less angry parents, telling their kid to wear a mask and why. So thank you for your time.
Yes. Dr. Reddy, you may step up to the podium.
Can you ask what to do water?
If you could please state your name and then begin. Thank you.
Shashidhar Ramchandra Reddy. The topic I wanted to talk to was the letter I got from the school district lawyer. But I think there's more important points, but I'll still talk about what the letter which Ms. Teresa Leather-Barrow sent me when talking about diversity. I appreciate your rationale for including diverse viewpoints in decision making. And you said my background is working with refugees and immigrant students and families at the International School /45. I'm not sure if you knew about this, but I choose to move to Williamsville because I want my children to grow up with children from all around the world. This was the email you sent me when we talked about diversity, which doesn't make any sense. Last time in the community meeting when I brought up this topic, Miss Susan Vanspipe stopped me in the middle of it. And I want to thank you, ma'am, because of your behavior, right? That's why I see a big change in this board meeting. And only Miss Susan McClary, I was able to get the emails. Only one person in the whole board talked about whether there is a diverse the representation in the student reopening. You are the only one who talked about it, ma'am. I have the emails to prove it. And now comes the part where everybody wants to blame somebody. You guys blamed Dr. Scott Marshall. I'm not a big fan of him. But I've read the emails which are circulated by your board members, which said that, oh, you don't have to submit to us. We will read it after it is submitted to the state. So when you guys are not doing a good job, please do the job same way you're working. Next time you'll see that the people who are sitting there will be sitting here next to me. Now comes the COVID. That's a very hot topic. As far as it's concerned, I feel that wearing mask is also very important. It will prevent the spread of it, at least to some extent. Nothing is 100% proof. I've emailed you guys about the use of air purifiers. I think I emailed everybody, and I also recently emailed Dr. Liffman about it, which doesn't need a lot of effort. I think that would be worth spending money on. The second thing is you can also have air purifiers in each room. It costs like $600 or $800 approximately. But I still think wearing the masks will definitely reduce the risk, if not 100%. And please continue doing the job, ma'am. Next time I'll see you sitting next to us here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is Andrew Wheeler.
Thank you. My name's Andrew Wheeler. Hello, and thank you, Dr. Brown Hall and the Board of Education for all the work you've done over the past 18 months. I've been very close to the public education system my whole life, between my mother and my wife and many of my longtime friends throughout the years. And as we found out over the past 18 months, that not everybody can do the job of a teacher. So my statement tonight is one that is focused on giving parents the choice to send their children to school with or without a mask. I firmly believe that our children should be present in school and in the very capable hands and compassionate hands of our teachers, and as stated so often nowadays, safely. So safety is an assumed prerequisite for any school setting, of course. No one would ever intentionally send their school to an unsafe environment, and no school system would ever foster that. That is why I'd like to offer a few ideas to help the health and safety of our children for this upcoming school year. I've studied and taught cross-contamination prevention for over 10 years as a board-certified wound care specialist. I'm very aware, as many other healthcare professionals are, that the main culprit for spreading most infectious diseases is that of your hand to mucosal linings, i.e. mouth, nose, and eyes. You may be seeing why masking small children might be counterproductive to the fight against COVID-19. As many speakers have pointed out over the course of several board meetings, children have a statistically minute chance of having serious complications or dying from COVID-19. The small chance should not be taken lightly, of course, as we should not discount the many other diseases that are passed around from child to child and child to family throughout the year. That is why I propose we empower, fund, and support the true front line of this pandemic, and that is to our custodial staff and our cleaning crews. Hiring larger crews, paying overtime, and providing continuing education on eradication of microbes are just a few examples of how we can do this. Included with this should be taking more steps to educate our students on hand hygiene, the true nature of microbes, and offering even more hand sanitizer stations, antimicrobial fogging machines, deep cleaning routines each week, and improved air filtration systems throughout our schools. These measures don't just fight COVID-19, they fight most infectious diseases at any given time. We obviously cannot prevent all infection, but we can do more good for our children with a clean environment than we can with a filthy mask. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is, and I apologize if I mispronounce this, Karina Palucci. If you correct my pronunciation for me, that would be lovely.
It's actually chocolate one, but I can understand how it's difficult. Thank you. So I'm going to read a written statement. Dr. Brown Hall and members of the board, I'm a parent of an incoming first grader in the Williamsville Central School District. I'm speaking here today because, like many other parents in the district, I'm worried that the district leadership may not follow the CDC and the AAP recommendations on indoor masking when schools reopen in September. The source of my concern is pressure from those who are running an organized misinformation campaign about face masks. With unsubstantiated and speculative claims based on cherry-picked and often flawed research, they try to discredit the role of face masks in reducing transmission risk of COVID-19 and downplaying children's risk of serious illness from the novel coronavirus. It's true that the virus is much more dangerous for older people, but even with all the restrictions that we have had in the last 16 or 18 months now, thousands of children in the United States have been hospitalized, and a few hundred actually died of COVID-19. So that number might look small when you statistically look at it, but as a number itself, it's actually striking. And also, if you compare it to other diseases like the flu in the last 16 months, CDC reports only one pediatric death due to influenza in the last 16 months. So that's like a several hundred-fold difference. So that means that what we've been doing is actually working. So we should not let our guard down. While a much more transmissible variant of the novel coronavirus is circulating in our community, and children under the age of 12 are not eligible for vaccinations yet. Until a COVID-19 vaccine is approved for all school-age children, universal indoor masking should be one of the main strategies, not the only one, we use to limit the spread of the disease in schools. And while finalizing your plans, reopening plans, please remember that you have responsibility to provide a healthy and safe environment for all students, faculty, and staff. So I hope that we can put this face mask issue behind us as soon as possible so that we can focus on other aspects of the upcoming school year. Thank you for your time.
For your comments. The next speaker is Michelle Callisto.
If we could please have order.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for giving up your time to be here with us. My name is Michelle Callisto. I'm the mother of 2 children in this district. Dario, he is 10, and he should be starting his first year at Casey as a 5th grader. He's full of endless energy and joyful curiosity. Lena is sweet, sassy, but very, very fierce. She's 7, and she should be starting 2nd grade at the most dynamic school on the planet, Dodge. And it really, really is. My husband and I chose to raise our children in this district. I actually fought him tooth and nail because he wanted Clarence. And I said, no, no, no. It has to be Williamsville. Why Williamsville? Because Williamsville has the best teachers. And I still believe that. Teaching is a profession near and dear to my soul. I'm also a teacher, a certified reading teacher, K through 12. For 10 years, I worked with at-risk youth at the Erie County Youth Detention Center, where I also had the blessed privilege of working with your father. And it sure was a privilege. So thank you and welcome to our district. But in 2016, I decided to shift careers to be a stay-at-home mommy. More thankful for those years now that they're long gone. And without a doubt, I was supposed to, at that time, I was able to support my kids' learning in school. I was able to participate in PTA events. I was an active member for the PARP committee, helping to bring literacy to family-based learning. So it was such a joy at that time to just be able to participate in my kids' learning and be able to go into the schools and walk those hallways and hear the laughter and all the children. You can sense the vibe of all the positivity and all that pure joy of learning. In 2019, I was lucky enough to join the workforce again, part-time, but this time as a Williamsville teacher. I couldn't have been more proud to be a part of what I felt to be my final dream job. But that happened in December of 2019. March of 2020, COVID hit 10 weeks later. The world shut down. Everybody did what they could to try to scramble and get through the year. And by the grace of God and the amazing teachers, staff, and administration at Dodge, my kids finished their year successfully. But the flood of trials and tribulations came to the start of the 2021 school year. I started the school year off teaching at Dodge. Once the lockdowns consisted with the inconsistencies of the hybrid model, at that time it was decided that I would stay at home and be with my children. As we struggled to educate our children through the year, I've learned one thing from last year. I will not do that again to my children. I will not put them into the inconsistencies and the variables of what has affected my family in a negative way.
Sorry,
I
your
stand up
3
here in my
minutes are
last
up.
attempt before I submit my letter of intent
Thank you, Ms.
and
Calypso,
high
for
hip
your
forms
time.
to
If
pull
you'd
my
like to
children from this
please
district.
Give your
And let's face it,
Minutes
at
are
this
clerk.
time, the vaccine and the mandates will only drive the division of our district further. It all started because last year you made
Ma'am,
the
your
choice
time
to
is
follow
up.
Government Cuomo and the CDC to corrupt sources for guidance that did nothing but guide
I'm going to
everyone
need
into
to ask
submission
the
division.
officer to remove you if you do
First
not follow
masked,
the guidelines.
unmasked, and then vaxxed, unvaxxed, and now masked and unmasked. I am asking everybody to please consider the science. Please look at it and consider our children. Please
Your
think of our
time is up.
children
Thank you
before
for your
you make
comments.
your choices.
We
Thank
only
you.
have 30 minutes and we have
Thank
more
you.
than 10 speakers. But I would just like to remind everyone that we only have 30 minutes for public expression. And right now we have more than 10 speakers signed up. We were hoping to get everyone in. So if everyone could please stay to your 3 minutes out of respect for everyone so that everyone can be heard at the podium, I would appreciate that. Our next speaker is Alan Belcha or Belicha. Okay. Our next speaker is Denise Furkey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Denise Furkey, and I'm here to voice my strong support for requiring face masks to be worn by all individuals this fall. I understand we're all tired, but the pandemic is not over, especially with the emergence of more transmissible and deadly variants. Our daughter is 11 and so does not yet qualify for the vaccine. While she was a fully remote student all of last year, since that option will not be available this fall, the only way to keep her and everyone else that is still too young to qualify for the vaccine fully safe is to continue requiring face masks indoors. I understand why the district is discontinuing the remote option this year, and we are in fact looking forward to sending our daughter back in person, and she's very excited to do so. However, that being said, if the district will require everyone to attend in person, then it also has a responsibility to err on the side of caution in doing so to keep everyone safe while there. As the medical community has come to understand, even fully vaccinated individuals can carry and transmit the Delta variant of COVID-19, since infected individuals actually carry a viral load that is 1,000 times higher compared to the original variant that was circulating last year. As a result, we are already seeing the beginning of a surge in pediatric COVID-19 hospitalizations throughout the country. Thus, unfortunately, making masks optional right now is just not yet the way to go, since the choice of one person to not mask in a school setting can affect the health and safety of everyone else there. In addition to keeping our children safe, I would also ask you to please consider parents like my sister. Although she got vaccinated, because of her ongoing cancer treatments, she did not develop any immunity to COVID-19. Her kids need to be in school too, but people like her are at extreme risks if the masks are not required because her children could not bring it home to her, and they're not yet old enough to be vaccinated. In fact, her oncologist has told her that if she contracts COVID-19, she will likely die, leaving her 2 young children without their mom. The district was very successful last year in its mitigation efforts, and we should continue to do what was shown to work right here. The Delta variant is more contagious and more dangerous than the variant circulating last year. So now is not the time to relax safety measures. Rather, by continuing to require masks, we can help to keep our kids safe, keep them in school full time, and enjoying extracurricular and sporting activities. And we can help to make sure that parents can continue to work because they won't need to be home if the school district then has to switch back to remote as outbreaks occur when they could have been prevented. So in closing, I'm just asking the district to please follow the medically and science-based guidance issued by the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics and require universal masking this fall. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Nicole Burrows.
Good evening. The first gentleman was worried about being first. I'm worried about being in the minority, but I feel that this is important for me to be here. And I had surgery today, and I'm here because it's that important to me. So good evening, superintendent, and welcome. And good evening, members of the town board, assistant superintendents. I'm just going to read a letter that I wrote today to Dr. Brownhall. First and foremost, congratulations on your new position with the Williamsville Central School District. I'm quite certain that you have received a numerous amount of communication regarding the mask mandate that has been imposed upon the residents of the Williamsville Central School District. While I realize I may be one of many, I may be in the minority in my personal opinion about the mandate. Nonetheless, I feel the need to express my opinion. Also realizing that the mandate that was sent on July 8th, 2021 only applies to summer school and that mandate is fluid and constantly changing, I wanted to express my concern and fear about having unvaccinated and vaccinated children and staff unmasked and masked in the classroom setting in the fall. As a community, we each have our own stories to tell. Not one of us is the same as the other. I respect that. I'm also a firm believer in choice and as such respect the choices that each one of us have made regarding the specifics of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, what I cannot and will not respect is the blatant ignorance and selfish disregard for those of us that have our own unique situation that molds our processing and handling of the fears of the pandemic. Unmask the children but put everyone else at risk, that simply does not make sense. The fear that comes with the possibility of a child's immune compromised parent, family member, or sibling who is not able to get the vaccine at risk of infection is just as mentally crippling, if not more so, than the impact of wearing a mask and what that wearing of a mask has on the mental health of our children. Again, I'm a firm supporter of masking, and that support will never waver. You see, I'm a fully vaccinated parent of an 8th grader who has been fully vaccinated and a 7th grader who is not yet eligible for vaccination. I am also a cancer survivor, and I also have multiple sclerosis, a chronic autoimmune disease whose disease-modifying drug and treatment that I need to be in front of you the way I am today has complicated my body's immune response to the vaccination. So guess what? As always, I'm the 1%, and I warranted not one single solitary antibody against COVID-19. I have been tested 2 more times. Both were negative. Thus, again, I'm at a greater risk of contracting COVID-19 with much more severe symptoms. I am sure you would agree that the death of a parent or a loved one is much more catastrophic on a child's mental health than wearing a mask that ultimately could have prevented such an outcome. No matter the guidance, both of my children will wear masks in the fall because that's my choice. Ultimately, it is everyone else's choice to do as they see fit for their family. The district has a duty to protect its students and its staff from harm. This is not a choice.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you
That's
so
fine.
much.
Thank you very much.
We did receive your letter today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker on our list is Phil Meyer.
Evening, everybody. Oh, that's really loud. We'll move it this way. It's good to see all of you again. I think I know each and every one of you. You know, I came tonight with like this idea of what to say. And I'm sitting here listening to my neighbors and community speak. And look, I respect every one of you. Honest to God, I'll take the shirt off my back for you. I'll help you any way I can. I can't help that we're at impassable dispute here, though, when it comes to masks or no masks. And I want to be clear, like, is there really a debate here? Like, come on, guys. This has been a year and a half. COVID is real. Masks protect you. The vaccine. And I know you keep snickering, guy. I'll still take my shirt off the back for you, okay? But I just would ask you for a little respect when I'm speaking, please. I am speaking, and I'm asking you to please give me a little respect. Thank you.
Let's act like adults. God, come on.
Do I get to speak, please?
Let's act like adults.
I mean, those are the facts. You don't need to look to me or any of us for answers. We have doctors, scientists, medical professionals, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics. They are professionals who dedicate their lives to this. And doing anything opposite that, I'm sorry, in my opinion, that's straight dumb. You are responsible for every kid that walks in this building. Please keep every kid safe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Gina Gentry.
Good evening, Superintendent Board. Thank you so much for letting me come and speak tonight. First of all, I am an educator as well as a mother and an advocate for students, and I am also part of the Constitutional Coalition. It's been a long 18 months for everybody, and I think the frustration that you're seeing from a lot of the people that are advocating for choice for masks is the fact that we were told it was going to be 2 weeks. Then we were told it was going to be a month. Then we were told it was going to be 3 months. When is the insanity going to stop? As an educator, it is hard for me to go to school and not be able to tell whether that child's smiling, not to be able to tell whether that child's sad. And if we want to talk statistics, and my heart breaks for those that do have autoimmune, my heart breaks for those that do have some sort of situation where they're not able to maybe have the full immunity. But if we want to talk facts and statistics, let's talk facts and statistics. According to the New York State Department of Health, as of just August 8th, the total fatalities by age group of children from 0 to 9 is 0%. The total fatalities of children from 10 to 19 is 0%. This is not rampant among children. And we know this is a virus. This is not going to go away. It's going to keep progressing. That is how viruses work. Whether you talk to a doctor or nurse, that is how they work. The concern is that medical breakthroughs have been happening for, I would say, 20 years in the health world. I have, by the CDC, the 10 leading causes of death in 2017. Number 8, for 15 to 24 was influenza and pneumonia. Number 9 for 10 to 14 was influenza and pneumonia. Number 7 for 5 to 9 and 10 to 14 was chronic low respiratory disease. So if masks were to be the all-in-all protector of everything, why not back in 2017 when the leading cause of death, did we not use them then? Why do we not use them when RSV has been the leading killing or hospitalization among kids? Because it's not a scientific-based research study. There's nothing scientific about it. Before March of 2020, masks were used to stop large globs of saliva getting into an open cavity during surgery. You're causing distress in children, you're causing distress in teachers, and ultimately, it's not giving the parents a choice. And for Governor Cuomo to make that mandate, which was above his role in the Constitution, everybody that supports him is abating a criminal. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Jean Consiglio.
Hi. So I'm addressing you today as those who are in positions of protecting our children. In order to do this, you must be informed. We now live in a time when our news outlets are in fact censoring huge segments of information from the people. Scientists and peer-reviewed studies are being disallowed simply because they do not agree with the narrative of some severely compromised agencies with glaring conflicts of interest and involvement in big pharma and the multi-billion-dollar vaccine industry and even mass production. A mask is in fact a medical intervention and therefore requires informed consent. Because all but one viewpoint is being censored, we do not have informed consent. Study after study, I can provide a link if you're interested, has proven the harm that masks cause, especially to children. Physical harm, emotional, intellectual. Can you show us any evidence that masks work? The FDA does not claim that they work. They make mandates, which are not laws, by the way, as if they do. In fact, it's illegal to mandate an emergency use authorized, approved investigational medical therapy without informed consent. It requires that the person given these be advised of their right to refuse administration of the product. The labeling from the FDA states that you must not imply that the mask is intended for an antiviral protection. Masks don't claim to keep out viruses. Read the box. Vaccines, though, are much more sinister. It is illegal to develop a vaccine when there are treatments for the disease. Did you know there are doctors that have treated thousands of COVID patients with a combination of pharmaceuticals and have lost none or only a handful of patients? You probably don't know that because we're not allowed to know that. I can name you a few doctors, Dr. McCullough, Dr. Zelenko, Dr. Richard Bartlett. Investigate, search it out. Thousands of patients, almost zero death. The death rate for this vaccine, though, is greater than all the vaccines combined for the last 30 years. And they only estimate that about 10% of those are reported. If you don't die from the vaccine within a few days, then you could die from something totally random, like a stroke or a heart problem. They don't even ask if you got the vaccine. So that is not recorded. There's no recording unless the family decides to record that. Tons of death, tons of neurological problems, major organ damage and failure, even death, are grossly underreported from this so-called vaccine, which has not been approved. Again, you are in this position for the children. Do the research. Take a stand.
Thank you for your comments. We have spent 30 minutes now, but we only have 2 more speakers. Are we okay to?
I'll make a motion to continue public expression for another until our speakers are done.
Yeah, second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Mario Caracas.
Thank you so much for having me. I know a lot of the other previous speakers kind of touched on a few things I was going to go over. I kind of wanted to hit on a few different points here. First and foremost, I mean, COVID-19 is here to stay, right? That's something we can all agree with, right? At some point, we're going to have to get back to the way life was, and that's not with masks. And what I mean by that is, like, I take it, for example, my son. He's fully vaccinated. He'll be going into 7th grade, okay? The thing with him, it's not just the physical piece of the mask, right? It's more than that. It's him having to sit 3 feet apart from his friends. I got an email, okay, from the teachers saying that Dominic continues to not comply, okay? Comply. Like it's some sort of order that a 12-year-old, 11 at the time, is getting in trouble for trying to go up and talk to his friends. My kids are being completely robbed of their school experience. We moved from Maryland. 6 months later, the pandemic hits. They haven't been able to make friends, okay? Because they're not allowed to sit with people at lunch. These are the effects that you're not thinking about, okay? I do feel bad for other people that do have underlying conditions. I do. I'm a human as well. I do feel bad for them. But the stats speak for themselves. And I don't have the most up-to-date data, but last week, it was 1,200 people that were fully vaccinated. Again, 1,200 people were fully vaccinated, okay, that died from COVID-19. 163 million people have taken and are fully vaccinated, okay? When you start giving percentages like 0.00002, okay, it's no longer science, right? You're all gonna sit here and you're gonna lecture us and tell science, 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 when then we have the data. At first it was a novel virus, and we did. We had to mask up and do all the things that we've asked for. But at some point, my children, okay, they deserve the right to live a normal life at school. That's what it is. And we also need to start taking into effect some other statistics as well, right? Approximately 340 kids have died from COVID, okay? Your kids are more statistically to die in a car accident, okay? than COVID-19. Those are the facts, okay? None of us are going to stop driving our kids around, right? Okay, so these are the things we have to start, really looking into, okay? And that's all I really have to say. I appreciate your time.
For your comments. Last speaker this evening is Karina Palucci.
Hi, everyone. I'm here not to talk about masks, although I do have my opinion, and if I have time, I will give it at the end. I want to, though, acknowledge all the parents who are here. It takes a lot of courage. I've been doing this for 6 years, literally 6 years I've been coming and talking to this school board. And every time I get nervous, every single time. So I want to acknowledge everyone here. They are here because they are passionate about their children. They want what is best for their kids, even though we disagree. Obviously, I do want to acknowledge the courage and the time and the energy that it takes for all of us to come to this microphone. It is not an easy task. So there's that. And we're looking, we talked a lot about lenses, right? I wanted to talk to you, but I didn't have the chance. It took too long. So my lens is I'm an involved parent. I have been on the school board of my nursery school, and my kids were in nursery school. I was on the PTA at the elementary school. I was a co-VP of volunteers. I was a co-president. I run the recess program at my middle school. I coordinate volunteers for 5th and 6th graders so that they can have recess. I don't have a 5th or a 6th grader. I still coordinate the volunteers for them. I am passionate about what is best for kids. Passionate. I want to talk to you about class sizes. This has been my passion for 6 years. A year before that, it was a struggle for my 2nd grader, who is now going to be a 9th grader, in Common Core. We were struggling. It was awful. I couldn't figure out how to fix it. I can't fix Common Core, but we do have control over class sizes in this district. You as board members have control over the class sizes that every class in this district has. That is under your control. I think that this is an opportunity this upcoming year, and if I have to come and talk to you every year, every July and August, because that is when you are making these decisions for September, I will. I would prefer not to, but if we have to do it, we will. And so I would like to see reduced class sizes I would like to see 25 and under for every grade, every class. I don't want to see 31 5th graders in a science class. I don't want to see it in an advanced math class for 7th grade. I think 25 and under is a reasonable request. I think you have an opportunity if we have to do social distancing, which I know a lot of these people don't want, I will take it if I can get my kids into a smaller class size. That is basically it. Most of you have seen me for many years, so you know how I feel. As far as masking goes, I will say, and this is not going to be favorable for everyone, but I would love it if my vaccinated children did not have to wear masks. I would love that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, and that concludes our public expression.
Everybody. Okay, we're moving on to our consent agenda approval. We will be voting on our consent agenda items 6 personnel, 7 business, and 8 special needs and student activities. If you wish to vote no or abstain on portions of the consent agenda, please give the numbers of the items you are voting no or abstaining on. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, please? Thank you, Ms. Catherine Bogner. May I have a second? Dr. Littman, thank you. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Carey if you would please take a roll call vote.
Okay, Mrs. Leatherbarrow?
Yes, except for number 79, which is a vote of no.
Ms. Speaker?
Yes to all except no to number 79.
Mr. Biscaglia?
Yes to all, except for I will be abstaining from number 75 and a no to 79.
Ms. Kaczmarek-Bogner?
Yes, except I am abstaining for number 79.
Dr. Littman?
I vote yes, except I vote no on number 16 and abstain on number 79.
Ms. Pullen?
Yes, except I abstain on number 79.
Dr. Singh?
Yes, except for number 79 where I abstain.
Dr. McClary?
Yes, except I vote no on number 79.
Okay, thank you.
So the record shows that all items passed except for number 79 of consent agenda personnel. At this time, I would like to thank the following retirees for their service to the district. Michael Mamalati, North High School for 36 years of service. Michael Ruda, Facilities Department for 6 years of service. Sandra Rubino, Forest Elementary for 15 years of service. And Suzanne Vesper, South High School for 29 years of service. Congratulations and thank you for your commitment to our district. Item 9, which is the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion, please, to approve the July 6th organizational board meeting minutes? Mrs. Pullen, thank you. Is there a second? Dr. Singh, thank you. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the president's report, looking at events. We did hold a retreat at our district office on July 8th. I want to thank each of my board colleagues for taking the time out of their busy schedules and away from their families to attend, as well as our superintendent, Dr. Brown Hall. The agenda is posted in board docs for anyone that wishes to view the agenda of our retreat. And I also want to thank Mrs. Beeger for leading the reflective journaling activity, and Mrs. Van Slyce for leading the activity of indicators of functional versus dysfunctional boards. We have a Nisba Equity Online Symposium that was held July 13th and 14th. Mrs. Kazmarek-Bogner and Dr. Singh both attended. There was a report that was submitted. Do either of you wish, to give comments at the table?
I just had a couple quick comments. It was a virtual event and they highlighted some practices to build safe and inclusive schools. Our district has already started implementing many of the ones that were discussed, such as trauma-informed practices, culturally responsive teaching, positive behavioral interventions and supports, and restorative practices. Some other suggestions, suggested actions that they spoke about were to ensure professional development in diversity, equity, inclusion for all staff, including aides and coaches and anyone who has contact with students, to consider an equity audit of districts to identify and address inequities, and to create a strategic plan that reflects equity and inclusion. They said what gets measured gets done. And the last thing that I wanted to mention, there was a panel discussion regarding the role of school resource officer and the importance of careful selection and proper training of school resource officers in adolescent development and building positive relationships with students. And that's all I wanted to report. Thank you.
Thank you so much for attending, to each of you for attending that. There are a few other events that are posted in board docs regarding new teacher orientation and opening day. So I just want to bring your attention to those. Item B is our Erie County Association of School Boards. There is a Western New York Law Conference, which will be virtual. Right now, Mrs. Kazmarek-Bogner is listed to attend. Is there anyone else that is planning to attend that? All right, thank you. Other upcoming meeting dates are listed in board docs. I will be attending for ESASB for the legislative committee, and I'll, Mr. Biscaglia, I can do most of the budget and finances. I know you and I are both on that, so if there's a meeting you can't make, I can probably make it. We can work on that. If there's any other committees for ESASB that you're interested in joining, these are optional. We don't always approve a board member for them, but there is a nominating committee, an awards committee, financial review, WNED educational rep, Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra education rep, Niagara Frontier Industry Education Council, and the Erie County Industrial Development Agency. Those are all listed in board docs. If any of you have extra time and are interested in serving on any of those, just let Mrs. Carey know by email or phone call, okay? Let's see. When I had a little note that said you can also contact Erie County Association of School Boards if you want to learn more information about any of those committees. Does anyone have anything else to report under Erie County Association of School Boards? Okay, moving on to Nisba, which is our New York State School Board Association. The law conference was held on July 22nd and July 23rd. Dr. Littman, Mrs. Pullen, and Dr. Singh all attended that. Thank you for doing so. A report, I believe, was submitted. Do either of you wish to give report or comments at the table? Okay, thank you. Oh, is your hand up?
No, I was just saying,
okay.
Thank you to Dr. Singh for doing the report. He got everything in there very well. So
It was a
thank
great report. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's right.
Our NISBA timeline for proposed bylaw amendments and the resolution book, all of that information is listed in board docs. We've already approved Dr. Littman to be our voting delegate. So I will ask each board member to please take a look at all of those resolutions and bylaws. I will be the first to admit I have not done so yet, but we will be discussing those at our September board meeting and making recommendations for Dr. Littman, who will then vote on our behalf. Does anyone have any comments on any of those so far? All right, thank you. The 102nd Annual Nisba Convention is going to be held October 24th to the 26th in New York City. Currently attending right now is going to be myself, Mrs. Van Slice, Mrs. Beeger, and Dr. Littman. We will be approving the expense for that convention in our next item number. So may I please have a motion to approve and authorize payment of registration for the NISBA convention as presented? Mrs. Kazmierczak-Bogner, thank you. Dr. Singh, second. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Does anyone have anything else to discuss under New York State School Board Association? All right, thank you. I'm moving on to item E. This is our Board of Education purpose and expectations. So we did vote on guidelines at our last meeting. I know there was a question about still having an opportunity to interact with staff. Dr. Brown Hall, would you like to share the idea of holding open house events for just staff that we talked about during agenda planning?
Absolutely. Because there was a concern that board members would not have opportunity to interact with staff when they were doing the school tours, we were discussing having the ability 3 times during the year to have board members meet with staff at the different high schools, and then invite elementary and middle school staff also to meet with board members to have discussions if they want outside of the school tours, so you're not interrupting classrooms and things like that while you're touring the school. But that opportunity would not begin until after probably October, and it would only happen 3 times during the school year.
Does anyone have any feedback on that? Mrs. Beeger?
Yeah, I appreciate that idea so much because I love the school visits for multiple reasons. It's wonderful to see the kids in the classroom. And I always enjoy the time to connect with staff while we were there, but it's inconsistent at different buildings. It's just arranged differently, and a lot of that is based on scheduling. Sometimes, at a high school, it's 1 free period, and if the staff are teaching, then we don't get the opportunity to interact. So if we were able to do this in a way where our school visits are really give us the opportunity to focus on the students and see the learning in the classroom, I don't want to take away the opportunity to connect with staff and faculty.
Absolutely.
So I love this idea of having a time where we can really have open dialogue with employees. I think it's great.
Perfect.
Dr. McClary?
Just a quick clarification. The meetings, you said, in various high schools, for example.
Mm-hmm.
the attendees at any of the meetings would be any of the teaching staff, not the people just at a specific school?
Not,
Or is
well,
it a school by school interaction?
right. So when, for example, if we did East High School, we would then invite the staff from the feeder schools to East.
Okay.
All right. Just so that you are meeting with staff from every school has the opportunity, but it's just not open to all staff members at each site. All right? Because you don't want it to get too big.
I was just going to say that.
Absolutely.
And I believe they're opening it up to all staff, not just teachers. correct?
Absolutely. All staff, not just teachers. Correct.
Dr. Flipman.
Yeah, and I think bringing the teachers to a meeting with us is a good supplemental idea. I just have to go back old school and think about the value we had for many years going into the schools before school started, spending time with the teachers who were already there, and then, having discussions, interactions, those types of things. The way it looks like it's been changed, I think reduces that a bit and becomes more of a showcase of what schools are doing, which again is very highly valuable. Just my concern as a former high school teacher is if people came to my high school, one of 8 in the district where I worked, I would be there. But if they said, hey, come to the central office and meet with the school board or whoever, I might have coaching responsibilities at that time, I would find. So I think it's a great idea to have. I'm just concerned that many faculty members wouldn't have the incentive to come.
I think that's a good point.
You have to try it. I mean, I think, if you don't try things, you don't know if they're going to work, but it's just, I think just in my mind, it's like saying, yes, these are great additions, but, let's make sure we get as many opportunities as we can to interact with the community and the students and the teachers. So.
Thank you for that. I'm going to have Mr. Biscaglia followed by Dr. Pullen.
Go first. Go ahead. Go first.
I was going to say I have some of the same concerns about the logistics of that, because whatever time that would be interacting with different schedulings of school days and so forth, I'm concerned about whether that would be more of a burden to put on teachers than it would be a convenience for them. So,
Mr. Biscaglia?
I'm kind of, I like the idea. So I'm a teacher. So like in the mornings, I'm hustling to get my lessons ready. Like in my eyes, that's how I look at it. Like, no offense, if my board members were there, I'd be saying, I'm sorry, I got to be prepared to teach for the day. Teachers' times are invaluable. So on the other flip side, and I loved last year going to the buildings and visiting and seeing everything that's going on, because that's valuable. And perfect examples, you get to see the class sizes, which is a big deal. My concern is kind of the similar thing, because I also coach. So I'm thinking like, hey, if it's every time, those 3 times a year at the same time, maybe you can, do different times out of those 3, not always be at 5 o'clock, or not always be, maybe that could help that situation. I think it's worth trying. I do like it. You're given an opportunity to meet with staff while also during your building visits, seeing what really matters, what's going on in the schools. But my suggestion would be maybe we can sputter those times so that
Absolutely. Great suggestion.
be involved if
suggestion.
if that could be, because I was thinking the same thing, coaching or other duties, or like I have to run home to my 3 little nutso kids.
Right. And I thank you for that feedback and that suggestion, realizing that nothing will be perfect, right? Because I know many teachers in the morning may have other obligations, right? So they might not be able to do that. And then evening time. So knowing that nothing will be perfect, let's try this with the staggered times in the evenings, and then we can have some discussion after we've done it, right? Just like action research. So after we've done it, how can we improve it later?
And perhaps too, just listening to all the feedback from my colleagues, if I can make a suggestion too, if you might ask our staff how they would prefer us to interact with them, because they might have another idea for a way that they feel comfortable with us interacting with them, because we want to make sure that we keep the lines of communication open. And we did switch the guidelines since the last time you were on the board, Dr. Lippman, we really put the emphasis and the focus on our students.
Yeah.
Because I would go to the visit and it was lovely. I loved talking with all the staff. I wouldn't see one child because we'd be out of there before the kids even got off the bus. And I really want to make sure that I'm there to see what are we spending our money on. You know, let me see the equipment. Let me see the renovations, especially with the security work that's going to be done in all of the main foyers. I want to see that. And I want to see our students, especially the teaching and learning. Okay, so thank you for all of that input. I do have to ask before we approve the school visitation guidelines as amended, you know, how do you feel about the visit schedule? Is visiting 3 schools in one day too much for you, or do you prefer it because then there would be less days to have to take? Ms. Mullen?
I prefer the 3.
Okay.
I think that's doable. Yeah.
Everyone in agreement with that? Okay, awesome. So with that, may I have a motion to resolve to approve and adopt the amended school visitation guideline for the 2021-22 agenda, which is item 10E, upcoming school visits? Mr. Biscaglia, thank you. And Mrs. Beeger, second. Is there any, well, we did a lot of discussion already. So all in favor? Thank you. Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. And with that, we do have on the calendar for our first visit to be on October 20th. And we're going to visit North, Ames, and Casey. Is there any board members that are able to commit to that today? Dr. Lippman? I'm able to commit, Mrs. Carey. Anybody else able to commit today? Mrs. Pullen?
I have my calendar.
You're checking your phone. It's okay. You don't have to check your phone because there's plenty of time. We can give, you know, we like to sort of think ahead just to make sure that we have at least 3 board members. We don't want to hold a visit and then none of us be able to show. Yeah.
I can commit.
Bogner, thank you. Okay. All right, so we definitely have at least 3 and hopefully we'll have more. Moving on to item F under the President's report. As a result of our retreat, we did receive legal guidance about eliminating the Roberts Rules provision from our operating procedures.
Yeah.
Our attorneys have advised us that that's outdated and it's not to the benefit of our board to keep Roberts Rules in play, which I'm perfectly fine with. So the change to the work of the board agreement, which we did approve at our last meeting, will reflect this update. And when we get to policy 1510, there was a change for the same thing, the Roberts Rules. Okay, so with this, may I have a motion to approve the change and reaffirm our work of the board agreement?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen, and thank you, Dr. Littman. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. We do have a retreat scheduled right now for February 12th from 9 to 1. As it gets closer, we can adjust the time if needed. I would like to get your feedback on having a Nisba facilitator for this retreat. I will point out that our last retreat in July, we ran ourselves, so there was no expense by the district. And I would like to propose that our topic be updating board policies. Dr. McCleary.
I have participated in the retreats with Nisba facilitators and with our own people this last time. And I have complete praise for Nisba and all that they do. However, I really thought in the last several years, our most productive retreat was the one that 3 of our own people were the facilitators. So,
well, thank you.
I'd love to give you more work, you know. So
I do appreciate that.
Consider, I guess I wouldn't automatically suggest that we go to Nisba. I mean, there may be, you know, one that you hear of that they are running, as many of them are really super. But
okay. Any other feedback? Thank you for that, Dr. McCleary. Mrs. Beer.
I agree. I think that it's an opportunity to save some money by not having Nisba come in and run it. Having Nisba run several retreats, we started to see some patterns, you know, similar components. We still use Nisba materials in the retreat, so it's not like we're abandoning that, but we're all educated adults and I think able to do that work without paying so much money for a facilitator. I would be happy to save the cost and to run the retreat ourselves again.
Okay. Dr. Brownell, do you want to give any input on that? Because I know you and I had spoken about policy revisions.
Correct. So when you look at the policies, I know we do a lot of work in Lynn. We appreciate that and all the staff when we get our policy updates from BOCES. So what I would suggest is when you talk about policy work as a board, is you take your policy manual and divide it up by the sections, and then board members can actually sign on to work on a section of policy so that it's reviewed and updated. So what you have then is board members who become experts on this section of policy, right? Because you're reviewing it and you're updating it. So it may take a little bit of time, then any updates or revisions that are specific to Williamsville are reflected in the new policies, especially the ones that may not have been looked at in years, right? And so I think that would be a great way to go about it. And you can do more than one section, but just realize that you're going to look and review each policy in that entire section.
Okay. So, listening to your feedback, I'm hearing that hold off on contacting Nisba. I can put in some calls just to get the materials because I know they'll provide us with those materials so we can have access to that without having to pay for the consultant. And thank you, Dr. McCleary, for the compliment about our facilitation skills. All right, so with that, I don't think we have to take a vote on that one. And I just want to point out that our education community forum date, we have two set up for us. So we have Saturday, October 16th, and that's going to be at East High School in the Commons when you first walk into the building from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So I'm going to ask board members to please put that date in your calendar. Obviously, it's not a requirement that all 9 of us attend, but it surely is appreciated when we're all able to attend. And our second community forum date will be Tuesday, March 22nd, after the budget work session meeting, which begins at 7 p.m. And so approximately that community forum would start around 8 p.m. Just judging on past experience. Any questions or comments on community forums? Mrs. Kazmierzak-Bogner.
I would just like to state, in case people have not attended the community forums, that the community forums is a venue where there is back and forth conversation, as opposed to public expression where it is only we are listening. So if you want to have a back and forth, those would be the dates this coming year that you could attend to participate in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, moving on with our agenda, we're on to item 11. And Dr. Brown-Hall, I turn it over to you for our community update.
Thank you very much, President Leatherborough. You can get the community update up. Nick, I appreciate it.
Slideshow thing?
Yep, the clicker right here. Awesome. So we're going to start the community update today talking about school reopening. So we've heard a lot of comments from the speakers today, and we do appreciate all the speakers' comments, all the letters and emails that we've received also. So just some background for those of you who don't know, but on August 4th, we received notice from the New York State Department of Health that they will not be providing any guidance, and they left it to the local counties and districts to develop guidance for the 2021-2022 school year. I will let you know that we are working with the Erie County Department of Health. There was a small meeting held on yesterday with a few superintendents, Dr. Gail Bursting, Kara Kane, and some of their staff to talk about what support and guidance that they can also offer school districts. And they, just like the New York State Education Department, will be following the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC guidelines, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP guidelines, when they give guidance to the schools for our reopening in September. So I am also working, Lynn Fusco has coordinated so that the Erie County superintendents are working together also, sharing ideas and figuring that out, what the opening of school will look like in the fall. I want to say we do appreciate, myself and the board members, the staff appreciate hearing from parents and community members all your emails, all of your letters. We responded because we want to let you know that we have received them and we are reading what you say. So we do understand your passion and your concern for the start of the school year. So we sent an information gathering survey to families and faculty and staff regarding the COVID-19 health and safety in our schools. The survey really focused on vaccines so we can get an idea of if there's vaccine hesitancy or how many individuals have the vaccine, how many will be receiving the vaccine within 6 months or when it becomes available for children between the ages of 5 and 11. We also talk about screening to see how many individuals are interested in consenting to screening and surveillance testing when the school year starts. So we ask that you please complete the survey. It closes on Friday the 13th at 5 p.m. So I know I've also received emails from individuals asking, why is there not a masking question on the survey? And I'm going to explain why we don't have a masking question on the survey. It's really important that we don't get in the mindset of thinking the most responses wins, right? Because there is no winner with whatever decision is made. There are going to be groups of people who are not happy, period. But we are going to follow the guidance from the Erie County Department of Health, the CDC, and the AAP. So I don't want to put anything about masking on the survey to give anyone the false sense that whatever we fill out here, the most responses will be the way the district goes, because that is not the case. So that is why there are no masking questions on that survey. All right. But once we have finalized plans for school reopening, we will be scheduling district-wide virtual reopening meetings so that I'm able to review the guidance and discuss what school will look like. After that, we will ask our principals to also do that school by school, so parents, families can know what to expect come September 8th when your students walk into the school building.
Before you go on to that, does anyone from the board have any questions about school reopening for the superintendent? Questions or comments? I'll go down the table. So Dr. Lippman, followed by Mr. Biscaglia.
And I understand we're in a data gathering situation using a variety of sources, but is there a timetable where we really have a date that parents and the community and the faculty and staff know all of this?
Right, that's a phenomenal question. And we did ask Dr. Burstein yesterday, when can we expect the guidance from the Erie County Department of Health also? And she said as soon as possible. And I know that's not the answer we want. We don't have a date, but we are looking, they do have to vet their guidance through their attorneys, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important that we don't rush that process, but they do realize that all districts are waiting just so that we can finalize our plans for the fall.
Would you say that's a scientific strategy? By delaying it, that's her scientific strategy.
Well, they did assure us because they were surprised, and some individuals from the New York State Department of Health were also surprised that they would not be providing guidance, right? So when it was thrown on their laps, they have been working around the clock. Now, we did receive a letter from Commissioner Rosa today, and I'll read to you the beginning of it. It says the New York State Education Department is in the process of developing a summary guidance document to aid schools and districts as they prepare for the 2021-2022 school year. This document will be based on CDC guidelines and guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics. This is necessary in light of the continued absence of health-related school opening direction and assistance from the governor's office and the State Department of Health. So we have multiple agencies working to make sure that we're off to a great start in the fall, and they provide the guidance for our districts.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, like the county, will we need to have our attorneys vet that as well, or will the county's attorneys vetting it work for us?
I think that will work for us, yes.
Mr. Biscaglia?
Just more of a comment than a question. I know their guidance is not out there, and we're still waiting for certain guidance to make decisions. I'm just hoping that next year, whether masked or unmasked, we get back to some normality within the school year. Field trips, concerts in school, things of that nature. I think it's very important for the social emotional learning of our students, our little ones. You know, I'm a little biased. They do have a kid starting kindergarten next year in 3rd grade. So it's just, to see kids' faces when even they get to go to, like something my son missed of the planetarium at North or little things like that. As long as the schools follow the guidance and can do that, I'm really hoping it gets back to some normality for all the students, parents and grandparents in the stands for sporting events and concerts and things of those natures, as long as, within transportation and following those guidelines within transportation and things like that. That's what I'm really hoping to see when decisions are made. Obviously whether masked or not masked, but going forward, hopefully that can occur within the guidelines.
Absolutely.
In our guidance.
Very good point, Board Member Wascalia. And I, being a parent, also want to see some sort of normalcy for my kids, right? But as you said, we have to make sure we get to that point gradually, and keeping in mind that this isn't going to be forever, right?
And
so thank you very much.
And things that we've spoken about before, just as long as it's also, hopefully we stay consistent throughout the schools, hopefully it's not one high school being able to do something, like hopefully we're collaborative, working together.
The consistency.
So there's consistency among those schools when it does occur.
Right.
Mrs. Beer?
Yeah, I wanted to just express my gratitude toward our building leaders. And district leaders too. It's hard when we have our hands tied and we're waiting for guidance, but I appreciate what you said as far as the organization of what's to come. We know to expect now a virtual meeting where you'll be sharing some details when we have those. And I really appreciate those building-based meetings as well. I think as a parent of kids at 3 different schools, it's really helpful that I know what that's going to look like. And I feel like I have that relationship or understanding from that building principal, so I can better prepare my kids for what's to come.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that planning and the leadership coming from buildings, working quickly and around the clock as they can to get schools ready for our kids.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments on the right? Dr. Singh?
Yesterday and today, I had the good fortune to meet with Principal Wall and Principal Swatland at Transit and East. And I did ask them the same question, like, are you guys prepared if schools open? And this delay in guidance from the Erie County is like affecting all preparations. The logistics of getting every child back in class, maintaining 3 or 6 feet, whatever the requirement is, it's going to be almost a nightmare, especially at lunchtime.
Right. Lunchtime is one of the clinchers. And so absolutely. In the classrooms, we won't, that the CDC guidance that was released in the spring will still apply with the 3 feet. The lunchroom is what we're waiting for really strict information about. You're absolutely right.
I mean, since we don't have any ETA when we're going to expect the guidance, so do we have like an alternate plans if the guidance, from
We'll be getting the guidance. I have no doubt that we'll get guidance. We will be getting the guidance. It's just a matter again of we're in a holding pattern, right? We were thrown a curveball, but we're in a holding pattern. And talking with many of our principals, though, they are developing plans, whether it be 3 feet or 6 feet. They are doing that because they're anticipating either way.
Playing the devil's advocate, if Delta variant goes crazy and we have cases way more than 10% in our county, now that we have eliminated virtual completely as an option, what else do you have, like a plan B in case the numbers continue to be so high? Continue to increase to be high.
Right. Well, we would have to, right? So even when talking to Erie County, we'll have to do exactly what we did last year. If we get to a certain level of infection or rate of infection, Erie County does have the ability to shut a school down, to shut a district down. And then we would have to revert to some sort of virtual learning.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Next item for your update.
The next item is bus transportation. We want to thank all the parents that actually have completed the survey so far regarding bus transportation. And that survey closes August 13th also. So completion of that survey, that completion of the request will allow the bus load planning to be more accurate and allow schools to plan for student drop-off and pickup. So I do want to thank our CFO, Tom Matursky, and his transportation team. They've been doing a lot of work in trying to make sure that the driver shortage, the effects of that is minimized. on our families, right? So that's why we're asking parents to fill that survey out so we know who will need transportation, so we know that we can plan routes accordingly. But if you choose not to have transportation at the beginning, that last bullet right here is very important. Parents always have the right to request bus transportation at any time, regardless of if they indicate they do not need the transportation. But one thing I need to make clear to all parents is that if you decide to then go with transportation, it is not immediate. You're not able to call that morning and say, I need transportation for that afternoon. It does take a little bit of a time to get a student added to a bus route. I just want to make sure every parent knows that.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So it's a really good opportunity to work with your neighbors. That's what we chose to do. We worked with our neighbors so that we can drive the girls to the high school in the morning, and then the other parent can bring them home.
Awesome.
It's just a little bit of a way to do our part.
And I appreciate that.
Just a clarification about the transportation survey in case parents are looking, because when you log right onto WITS, you see the most recent survey that came out right away, but I believe that transportation survey came in an email. So if parents are looking for that, or at least for me, I noticed when I logged on, it doesn't pop right up like some of the other surveys do. But if you go your WITS mail, it should be right there. Or if you just search transportation, you can find it there. It's
Thank you for that.
a little different navigation.
I think that one came through an email because it was specific to your child. It had my child's name listed. So I think, because I had the same problem, I went looking for it and was like, well, where is it? And it was right in the WITS mail. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So loading of school buses will be in line. So we are going to get guidance on that also, and that will determine the load capacities. We will be assigning seats on the school bus so that if contact tracing is necessary, we know what students will need to be contact traced and what students will need to be quarantined. While the district anticipates driver shortages, we are also anticipating a shortfall of 15 to 20 drivers to begin the school year. And due to the need for daily bus routing changes and flexibility, the MyStop bus tracking may not be available at various times. Buses will continue to be cleaned per the CDC requirements, and bus schedules will be available the week before school begins. Now, if you or you know someone that is interested in becoming a school bus driver, please call Student Transportation of America at 716-912-6143. Now, they have also increased the hourly wage for bus drivers to try to entice and get more individuals to drive buses because they know how important it is to get kids to school. So I will let you know that. So again, this is an advertisement to try to get as many bus drivers as possible. Any questions about bus transportation before we move on? Water lead testing results. I'm going to turn this part of the presentation over to our CFO, Mr. Tom Matursky.
Thank you, Dr. Brown-Hall. This past school year, school districts were required to do the second phase of water testing, lead testing in our water. Just a little bit of history here. 2016 was the first year we had to do testing. It's on a 5-year cycle. And so it came up for 2020-21. Due to COVID, as everything, New York State Education Department really extended the sample timeline to 6/30/21. With that, though, there's a stipulation that you could only take samples when schools were occupied by students. So it also was not just a partial occupation, it was more toward full occupation. As a result, our samples were taken toward the end of last school year. You can see on here, elementary schools were done on 5/1/21. Middles 6/5/21, and high school 6/12/21. And if you look at the calendar, those are all Saturdays. And that's because you can do it within 24 hours after student occupation. We had 12,901 samples taken. You may ask, how is it determined whether a water outlet should be sampled? It's all in the guidance. So all of the samples that were required to be taken by New York State guidance were taken. We had 87.52% passed or being under the 15 parts per billion. We do have 161 samples that are over that. And so we will be remediating all of those items before the school year per SCD guidance. If you also part of this, the reporting aspect is very important. Reporting goes to a number of agencies, state and local, as well as to our parents and staff. Erie County Department of Health receives it. That had to be done 24 hours after we received the samples. Parents and staff, there's a 10-day period after you receive your samples, and test information must be posted on our website, which it has been. We also had to put information into the New York State Health Department, their health electronic reporting database system. And that was done in a sample of the report showing all of our buildings being reported is included in the agenda item. As we move forward, we did have a lot of the filling stations that we started to put in really pre-COVID. They now are really put through all of our buildings. And that's a good access for water because those are filtered. And when we tested all of those outlets, they basically came back at 0. So that would be a very good source of water, and that will continue to be in the future. Additionally, as I said, we're going to be doing all of the remediation efforts, and I provided you with several items here on what that means. The state requires us to do, you can flush an outlet and then take another sample and send it in. You can sometimes replace a fixture if that's called for, retesting that, of course. And then there is the possibility of labeling if the item is more of a out of normal use area. An example of that is in the last roll of testing, we had shower areas in the elementary school. Those rooms were used for storage, not even showers. But the last time we did have to do testing in there. So that's an example of that. We will have all of our remediation testing done and anything ready to go for the beginning of school. So we're good for that. And just one last note on this, all of the additional tests done must follow the same reporting requirements. So that will all be reported as required, posted on our website as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matursky. I'll move forward to special education after school programming. So this is a very brief slide. This was something that was brought up and board members asked about it. So during the listening tour, a lot of parents asked about a specific special education after school program that is housed in Amherst and run by People Inc. And they were asking the ability for us to transport students to that program. The problem is it is out of district transportation. And once you do that, you open up to not following the policy, and then that will open up transportation to so many other programs. And we don't want to go down that road because it will be cost prohibitive. And knowing that we have a driver shortage already, it will just compound that problem. So in the discussion, I know that Mr. Scanzuzzo and his team have looked into that People Inc. program, and because it's so close, they may not be able to duplicate that program in our district. But Mr. Matursky had a great idea that we develop and release an RFP for similar in-district programming to see who would respond so that we would be able to have a program similar to the People Inc. program in Amherst. So that is something we will work on in RFP so that we can release it to see if we're able to run a program of that nature in our district. So Mr. Scanzuzzo and Mr. Matursky, thank you very much for that.
I want to thank you for that because that's something that we've heard for a number of years. Our parents of our students with disabilities not having access for a service for them for after school. And it makes it very hard for a parent that has a job that isn't able to to be with their child after school. So I'm very happy to see some movement in that area. Thank you, both of you.
So the next part for the community update, we do have a mathematics update, and I will turn it over to our Chief Academic Officer, our Assistant Superintendent of Instruction, Dr. Marie Balin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brownhall, and thank you to the board for the opportunity to bring this update for you this evening. I'd also like to express my gratitude to Dr. Chris McGinley, our instructional specialist for K-12 mathematics and computer science. Chris is actually here in the audience tonight, and thank you to our math teachers across the district who continue to do an outstanding job supporting our students and our program. So this is one of the items, as you know, that we've had updates along the way and actually dating back several years. I believe I reviewed all of them that we've done up to date really stemming from 2017, 18, and as recently as right before our COVID closure, we had quite a discussion at the board meeting around our math supports and our program. So just a brief recap. We know we have a lot of data and information at our disposal. As shared in the prior updates, analysis of student learning and data are regular and extensive. These data include those on the screen, and they are qualitative, quantitative, diagnostic, and formative. These are used squarely to drive instruction, certainly student supports, anything that would serve to advance student learning, communicate high expectations, increase collaboration, and certainly if there's any opportunities for professional learning or growth, that's what we are about. So to give you a sense of what we are working on, and we shared a recent update with the board on some of our fact fluency work. This also dates back a number of years. We actually had a committee of nearly 40 people back in the 2018-19 school year, and that was comprised of stakeholders from across the district. And this committee met for about a year, and really the term fluency was the one that they were delving deeply into. That term, just as we use it in reading or across other curricular areas, is defined in multiple ways as you look through research. So one of the things that we were really striving for in the area of math is to have a common definition and a district agreement about what fluency is. And as we know, fluency is something that spans all grade levels, K through 12. So fluency, as defined by the work of the committee and based on research, primarily by Dr. Jennifer Bay Williams, who is a foremost expert in this area, is skill in computing with accuracy, efficiency, flexibility, and appropriate strategy selection. And as we know, again, that spans continuum of any grade level, and really any course up and through and including high school. So we've done book studies. I actually have Dr. Bay Williams' books here. This is her newest 2021 publication. Her name may be familiar to many educators because she's been on the board of directors for the National Council of the Teachers of Mathematics, and she's currently a professor in Kentucky, University of Louisville, to be specific. So we became connected with her, and really it's been a great partnership along the way. She served many roles and really much advisory for our school district in terms of curriculum and also delivery of instruction. Professional learning was also something we had invited her in on a Saturday, actually, before COVID, and we had over 100 people attend a professional learning seminar. It was very well received. But some of the recent work includes really diving deeply into a more coherent and common experience for our students, emphasis on fluency strategies, exercises and games, vocabulary and questioning and differentiating, assessing student understanding, focus on math-specific goals at the school level. So it's really right down, this is not just a broad effort, it's really school-specific, and implementation of her research-based fluency progression that she cites in her research. So we're very pleased and have had some very powerful experiences, and we are planning on having her continue her relationship with us as we move forward. So just a couple of items, and again, this was a topic at the board table, and certainly something that we took to heart, because although we've achieved many successes, I feel, as a result of our program and our practices, and certainly academically, we've seen very fine results from our students, and everybody's worked very hard. We continue to be adopting and having a growth mindset, and we want to make sure that we are always focused on continuous improvement. That's the best way we serve our students. So by all regards, achievement, although high, we want to continue forward with meeting every student where they are and advancing their learning in any way that we are possible to do that. So as you know, past efforts have included our math lab at the middle school, which has been very successful. Because of COVID, it did have to change and really cease the frequency, because it's predicated on having in-person learning for 5 days, because it's a just-in-time model where students are receiving daily remediation, but we're going to pick that back up as we resume school. We did cease several math sections at North that were self-contained to go more towards a co-taught model to ensure the appropriate certified staff were delivering the instruction to students. Again, that's been very successful. Several years ago, we extended math time at the middle school level. You'll remember much of that conversation, board members who were with us at the time. We also, moving forward, created several new structures that we want to share with you, some of which is possible actually through our COVID money. So we're really, really proud of some of the things that are forthcoming. One is, just like the math lab at the middle school, we are putting a structure in place to ensure that students' needs at the elementary level are met in a just-in-time manner. Much of Chris's work with our math specialists, which we've also increased math support, is geared towards doing that at elementary. So we feel really good about where we are heading. Although there still is a support structure in place currently, this is an enhancement moving forward. We also did begin, and this started actually during COVID. One of the things we had brought to the board previously was the implementation of geometry labs, and we did that, and we will continue to do that at high school. And last but not least, this is the biggest one, and I think that one of the more significant ones for the board and the community is we are implementing learning centers. More, you'll hear about it. We've heard about it from Clarence and some other neighboring districts. These labs are at middle and high schools, and one staff member, a certified staff member, will be staffing that before, during, and after school, and that will provide ongoing support for students. It could be scheduled or unscheduled, so a student may drop in if they like, or it could be something that a teacher assigns to a student as needed. But this will ensure that there is an immediate response if there is a need for a student. And this may be help with homework. It may be they're struggling with a concept. It could be for a number of different reasons. But one of the items we spoke about as a board, and as we brought information to you, and I was here with Chris and our principals the last time, is we want to make sure we have something in place. We have so much support, and there's so much, as you know, already existing, but this provides a layer of support that really is the icing on the proverbial cake, and it's ongoing before, during, and after school. So we will be doing a lot of communicating. We're very excited about it. We met with the principals this morning, Mr. Scanzuzzo and Dr. McKenna and I were actually part of a meeting with the middle and high school principals because we were looking at how to best get staff on board, implementation, and so on. And obviously, we have talked a lot about school reopening, so obviously that is a priority, but we want to make sure that this is something that moves forward, and we want to have the supports in place for our kids, and we think it is going to be quite significant. So we'll look forward to bringing you some updates on that front as we move forward. So we wanted to make sure you knew anything we had talked about prior to COVID, because again, I think our last opportunity when we came together was right before school closure had occurred. I believe it was in January. All of those structures currently still exist. All of those same supports are still in place, but we are moving forward with increased staffing. I mentioned the math specialist. Professional learning is a big part of it. Chris is actually helping us set up a professional learning model similar to the Teachers College, where it's job embedded and lab model. Dr. Brown Hall mentioned action research. The closer you can get to the classroom, the more immediate the response is, the more success students will have. And that's really what we're after. So we will continue on this path. We have some very exciting things moving forward, and I cannot wait to bring you some news as we're moving ahead with these endeavors. But just to give you a sense of some of our recent news too, we were just recently notified in the last, this past year, that we received the District of Distinction Award for Mathematics through a national publication there, as you can see on the screen. And we also were recognized for closing the achievement gap in mathematics. And, you know, again, regardless of where we stand when it comes to numbers and rankings, we will continue to do our very best in meeting students' needs across the board. So thanks again for the opportunity tonight, and I welcome any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you much, Dr. Whelan. I'll go down the table. I'll start on this side. Any questions on the right? There's math. All right, I'll work this way. Mrs. Beeger.
Thank you for sharing all of these updates for math. This is definitely something that we have talked about at the table before. Chris McGinley, thank you for all your work. The math lab is a brilliant idea, and to learn that this is moving to the elementary level, and we know that there's been additional positions to help form that structure. I'm a big believer in early intervention, so that's wonderful, and I'm pleased to see the district doing that work. What I really want to comment on is what you mentioned about high school, because that was really where, as board members, many of us were hearing concerns from parents that were frustrated that their kids were struggling in math. And I think that when we return in the fall, there's fears that, you know, kids that may have need to accelerate their learning more, a little bit more of learning recovery, what have you. I'm thrilled to hear about the learning centers, the geometry lab. I think there's a lot of families that feel helpless when they can't support their kids. I mean, I can't support my child with high school math. And I know that we have several families that hire tutors. So my question is, since the district is doing this work and we're going to have additional support at high school that we haven't had in the past, how will we communicate that to families? Or is there a way that math teachers can communicate that, or just ensure that that's part of the syllabus so that kids know and also families know? Sometimes kids don't say, hey, there's someone before or after school that can help, that families know how to nudge a little contact there so that the kids can get the support in district.
Right.
What I think the greatest concern was feeling that like some families can afford to get a tutor and some couldn't. And that shouldn't be an issue here. We want to make sure we have equitable situations for everyone. So if you could just share, or if there's a plan on how we communicate that to
Yeah,
families.
so communication is essential, and I think that did come up during our last conversations as well, and we heard that as a part of this ongoing dialogue. So what we are planning is actually, and we've done this with other topics, and it's worked really, really well, is Dr. McGinley and I will work with the building principals and have a consistent communication, and I think communication from that vantage point, both from the school as well as the teacher level, is critical so that they hear it both globally and also from the specific teachers. We also have newsletters. We have other ways that schools are communicating. So I think whatever we can do to make sure that the message is out there, and this is a positive thing. If we watch the video of the math lab and the student really who spoke, we had to do a video to include for our math lab recognition. The power of that student being able to say, this is not a punishment, this is a support for me. I welcomed it. It did something for me that I did not think would be possible. That's what we want everybody to feel. So this is a positive thing. We are going to promote it across the board. So I think the communication is essential, and we will work very hard to make sure that it goes out in as many ways as could be.
Love to hear that, and love to hear the consistency too. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Biscaglia?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the learning centers. It's excellent. I mean, and I like the part where you mentioned, and I hope it can consistently stay this way, is scheduling it or walk-ins. I think it's important to remember, you might be doing great on one unit, and then the next one you're falling apart. And they had, our students have the advantage of being able to say, hey, I'm lost. Can I come in on Wednesday? Get caught up or whatever they need to, that support system is there. And then the elementary schools, I kind of missed that a little bit. So I know there always has been great help with math and extra help in math in elementary school. So you're trying to bring centers there? Is that what I'm understanding, or it will be happening?
So what we're trying to emulate, structurally speaking, in addition to all the supports that currently exist, is one of the things that we saw work so well at middle school was a math lab model. And really that's predicated on having just-in-time information. And as you said, it could be they're struggling on one skill, one concept. You may be doing great overall. So this is not, pigeonholing any type of ability level or labeling anything. It's really at all times someone needs help with something. And again, it might be homework. It might be a unit that you're needing just more support on. The idea is you have a structure there, a person that you can go to. What they did at the middle school is use that data, and it's day to day and on a more frequent basis. It could be weekly as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be daily, but that's how you know who needs what. And what you're doing is you're not waiting to respond to the need. So there is a more immediate response to whatever that need is. So having math specialists be at the heart of coordinating that, because it does take coordination, is really what Chris and the specialists are going to talk about. How do you go about meeting those needs, and what kind of structures can we put in? Middle school obviously has a different schedule than in elementary school. So they're going to have to do some work to customize that type of approach relative to an elementary setting. One of the other things I would mention, just to add on to the learning lab piece, is we are also adding support for students from an ELL perspective. So that was by design. So as you know, part of the ARP monies are targeted towards certain areas. So we coupled some of the things we're able to do with ESSER and ARP. And one of the things we're actually doing, in addition to the overall structure of learning labs and outfitting that with a staff member, is adding L support. Our numbers continue to grow. I'll bring that forward to you at another time, but they do continue to grow. And we want to make sure, again, to meet student needs wherever they may be. And it could be for students who need acceleration too. This is not just remedial. It really could be for meeting students' needs wherever they may be. So we are prepared, we're excited, and I think it's really going to be a great success story moving forward. So more to come.
Yeah. So just one last thing. I loved everything I heard. And I know this isn't your job, but hopefully within the schools they're advertising that on the announcements every day. Like,
we're gonna
just get that out there.
Get it out there. We're gonna get it out there.
I know.
Promise.
I know you will. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just had one question. We are using the the ARP funds and other funds for these 2 years. So do we have a mechanism to continue once the funding runs out?
So this is what we shared with the principals, and this is true of anything we're supporting through grant money. And we know we've had other grants, and we've been fortunate in most cases that those do continue for extended periods of time. That may not be the case with this money. In fact, we know it's probably not going to be unless they're extending something. So what we're doing is we are setting goals for ourselves as a result of this work. What are we hoping to accomplish? Because if after this grant period is over, we've been able to show that we have met those goals and we're showing that we're meeting student needs, really what it's going to come to is a couple of things. If there is not an enhancement of funds, which we're not expecting at this point, and it would be great if that did happen, but in lieu of that is we're going to have to make some decisions about what we keep and prioritize over other things. So the principals know that, and really that's the landscape we're in. We do that as a regular budget process by design, and we're really going to have to do that here too. So these, along with our other items that we're bringing on as new items or enhancement items, we have to make sure that along the way, we don't want to get to the end of the grant period and then say, hey, did we think this worked? No, it has to be by design that we have goals, measures, strategies, and is this something that we're hoping to retain after the grant period is over and be able to demonstrate that that now is a priority over something else. And that is part of our process. We do that, as you know, when we talk about the budget. So we are prepared to have that conversation.
Thank you very much for that, because I think when we talk about goal setting, when we get to our workshop, what we value is what we spend our money on, right? We will have to make those tough decisions about what exactly it is we value. And as a board, we've taken a stance that we value diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that inclusion piece means accessing all learners. We are so proud to have the status and the accolades, right?
Yeah.
We also have to recognize that there's kids that fall through the cracks. And so I applaud your efforts on this. I know it's been a work in progress, put on pause a little bit by COVID, but I'm really grateful for this additional funding to be able to offer this.
Thank you.
Dr. Lippman, final comments?
No, just supportive of everything my colleagues have said and all the work all of you have done. But, just to reiterate, mathematics is a building block for so many different things,
Absolutely.
life, in careers, analyzing data, and all the things that you can do without looking at your phone, which is always, I guess, also important. But, anything that helps support our students and their success, all of these things my colleagues have mentioned, are just, again, very positive. And anything we could do to support our students' success, we commend Chris and you and
Thank you.
all of you for getting it going.
Thanks.
Keep up the good work.
Ms. Pullen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the building blocks are very important, and I'm having been a parent of a child who all of a sudden hit a wall. Like having something like that in high school is essential. Yesterday, I was able to go to Country Park where they'd had a family math game.
Yeah.
And it was really intriguing to me to watch that, because one of the things we always hear parents say is, I don't know what they're even talking about. And then the parents were learning the vocabulary by playing the games with these kids. And so they were building the blocks to help move that along. So
Great.
that was a great.
Thank you. And thanks for going. And thanks for mentioning that too. So that's based on Dr. Bay Williams' research. What Chris is doing then is that was used as sort of our pilot of seeing how that would work. It was very well received. So he's going to be working with the math specialist at the buildings to replicate that for our buildings across the board. So those are things you're going to be hearing about moving forward. But thanks again for the opportunity. I really appreciate it this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Balin, and thank you, Dr. McGinley, for all of your work back there. Are you complete with the
Community
update?
update is complete now, so
Okay.
thank you very much.
So we're going to roll because we want to try and get through our agenda to get onto our goal setting. So I'm going to combine 11B, 11C, 11D, and 11E. May I have a motion to resolve to approve and adopt agenda items 11B, UPK consultant, 11C, DASA district and building coordinators, 11D, annual agenda, and 11E, district safety plan as presented. Dr. McCleary, thank you. May I have a second, please? Ms. Poland, thank you. Is there any discussion? I just have one discussion piece for the agenda. I know we have a school opening report for September. Are we able to get a little bit of class size data, preliminary class size data combined with that school opening report?
Yes, and the
I know the main one is usually October.
December.
Oh, December.
The
thank you.
2021-2022 annual agenda was updated to include a preliminary class size report in September.
Perfect.
So it was updated.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Any other discussion on all of those items? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We are on to our discipline report. Are there any questions from the board regarding item 11F? I have one question, and that is, how will this data be used to drive decision-making?
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely examine the data, and I know that board members had asked questions, and Mr. Scanzuzo responded to those. But the data is always reviewed to look to see what support we can give schools if we see that there is either a large group of students or a subgroup of students that need support or getting a high number of referrals or a high number of suspensions. I know it's also asked to be disaggregated, and we can share that with the board separately. We just want to make sure, because some of the numbers are so small, that they're not identifiers for certain students, right? But that information is always looked at. Mr. Scanzuzo shared that back when he was a principal, that information was looked at also to make sure that any support we can give at the district level to help principals reduce the number of suspensions and discipline referrals, that's what we're ultimately using that data for.
Thank you. And I did ask it through email, and thank you, Mr. Sanzuz. I just wanted to make sure I was
absolutely
also asking at the table.
You're welcome.
Policy updates. Item G, is there a motion for the first reading, revised policy 1510, regular board meetings, regular board meetings, rules, quorum and parliamentary procedure as presented. So this is the first reading of revised policy 1510, which we did have our attorneys also take a look at. Mrs. Beeger, thank you. May I have a second? Dr. Singh, thank you. Is there any discussion on the revisions? Anyone wish to see anything else included in them? Mrs. Beeger?
It's just a small question that I wonder if we, before the second reading, can bring back to our attorneys is before COVID and before having virtual meetings, if there was a board member that was unable to attend, the address where the person was attending from or their location could be shared. I'm just wondering if that's a practice, if goodness knows we all don't want to go virtual again, but if something like that were to happen, do we need to disclose as per policy? The wording says identify the locations for the meeting. I'm just curious if that's something that needs to be updated given the times, or if it's
I'm reading, if the
English
Board
that
of
remains.
Education approves video conferencing or online technology to conduct a meeting, the public notice for the meeting shall inform the public. The video conferencing or online technology will be used. Identify the location for the meeting and state that the public has the right to attend. I believe that's speaking to the fact that if we all go virtual, like if we all do. So if it's an individual, then an individual board member has the right to join an executive session, but doesn't typically join the board meeting.
Okay.
Does that answer that?
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification and reading it too. Perhaps they're talking about, because we want to make sure the public has the right to attend the meeting, but perhaps that means we're sharing the location, like the old location online, not like all of our home addresses for people to come and join us.
No.
That was my,
Or very similar to what you did before when the public was not allowed, but you held the meeting was being held here, and you can announce that, but the public was not able to attend, but you still live streamed it.
So then that language still makes sense. Thank you. I appreciate clarification.
All in favor for support of the first reading of that motion? Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. And is there a motion to table this revised policy since we're still under Robert's rules until this goes forward, so that we can bring it back for a second reading next month? Dr. Lippman, thank you. May I have a second? Mr. Biscaglia, thank you for that. All in favor for that? Opposed, abstentions, motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 12, finance. I'm going to combine these items as well. May I have a motion, please, to resolve to approve the non-resident tuition rates in 12A, the contract assignment of awarded services for after-school security in 12B, the sale and disposal of district property in 12C, the Chinese Club of Western New York BCS lease agreement, 12D, Amherst Youth Basketball lease agreement, 12E, and the 2021-2022 school year tax warrant as presented. Thank you, Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner. Mrs. Beeger as a second. Is there any discussion on any of those agenda items?
Yeah, I just, if you wouldn't mind, I just wanted some clarity on B, about the administrative times. I wasn't sure what that was. Is that a supervisory time?
Oh, the after-school security?
Yes.
Okay.
It says, the rate is there, then it says administrative time per agreement, 8 hours per week. And I wasn't sure what specifically that meant.
Sure. Dr. Brownhall or Mr. Mazursky?
Right. That is something that has been in the contract, but it's my understanding that it includes scheduling, payment processing, communication with district personnel, including principals. So that's what that amount covers and those hours cover.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good because I was only looking at the rate for the security monitors and I missed the administrative piece. So thank you, Dr. Littman, for bringing that up. Okay, any other questions for discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to liaison reports. If you have any liaison reports, please send them to Mrs. Carey. I want to thank the board members who have set up meetings already with their building principals and have gone in for school visits. It was really great to read your reports. So thank you for doing that. I want to encourage all board members to please have a point of contact with your building principal prior to the start of the school year. It doesn't necessarily have to be a meeting, but at least send an email, send a greeting saying, hi, I'm going to be your liaison. Looking forward to seeing you. The PTSA president list is also in board docs for board members viewing. It's always a good idea to make a contact with your PTA president as well so that you can establish that relationship. That's a really important relationship to have. Please contact, oh, I already said that part. Okay. Any questions on liaisons? All right, number 14. Anyone have any legislative matters to discuss? Other than we have a new governor in 14 days. It's okay. 15, may I have a motion to approve and adopt the professional learning plan as presented? Thank you, Dr. McCleary. May I have a second, please? Thank you, Ms. Poland. Are there any questions for discussion or comments? Dr. Breland, as always, like the professional learning plan, it makes those of us who work or have worked in other school districts extremely envious because there's just so much that someone can take advantage of at no cost or to be paid. So that's really amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Are we voting on that one? Yes, we are voting on that. And did I already get the first and the second? I did. So can we please have all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? One abstention? Okay, so motion carries with one abstention. Thank you. All right, we have no personnel matters to discuss. Dr. Brown-Hall, I turn it over to you to our capital project work update.
So I would like to turn it over to our CFO, Mr. Matursky, for the capital project update. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Brown-Hall. I'll go over this very briefly. Start with the good news. Our music project is going according to our schedule. All the buildings will be ready for students in September. More good news, always good. We're $3,397,142 surplus under budget for that proposition. And what we're looking to try and do with that is to complete another portion of the Middle School roof. Unfortunately, the construction costs have been rising, as we all may know. So we will continue to move forward with those efforts. And if we're able to, we're going to do at least a couple sections of that roof because the A, B, and C wings were done about 4 years ago. So this would just help us out in that area. So other than that, the pictures that were included, I'll just go over it just so that the audience knows. The first one was the South High School auditorium. The second was the South High School chorus room. The third was the South High School band room. And then the music notes on the wall was the South High School hallway.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mr. Matursky.
So we got to see a lot of these in our visits last year. So parents, please log on to Board Docs to look at these pictures because they're really awesome. And when we did the listening tour at South, I was just amazed by how beautiful the auditorium turned out. It's absolutely gorgeous. So kudos. And to know we're under budget is pretty awesome too.
That is.
All right. Water test results and remediation. I know that it was part of the update. Did you want to add anything else? I don't think it's necessary. Did anyone have questions about the water testing? I did get the emails that came through as a parent, so I appreciate having all of that information. All right, there are no matters to discuss under item 18. For committee of the whole, it was brought to the board's attention an item about policies. I'm going to ask Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner if she wants to speak about that.
Sure. As we had mentioned earlier in this meeting, some of our policies haven't been looked at by BOCES in a number of years, and I just wondered if it would make sense to form a policy committee. So as Dr. Brown Hall discussed, we can sort of systematically review our whole policy manual, and I love that idea of people being assigned to specific portions of the manual so we can become experts in that portion of the manual. So that was the item that I wanted to bring to the table for discussion.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to provide feedback on that? Dr. McCleary.
I would also agree that certainly having BOCES take the lead in this is good, but if we can almost personalize some of the policies, because as we read through them, I myself, every once in a while, I'll read a section, it's like, we don't do that.
Right.
So if we can, again, continue to use our expertise, that would be helpful. So I'm in favor of a committee.
Is there anyone that's opposed to us doing this type of work?
No, I was just going to say, when that kind of went around and we began to look at that, I had said I'd be glad to work on a policy committee, but I much prefer the model that Dr. Brown Hall suggested to us, that we all take a piece of that. And
Excellent. Dr. Littman.
Well, I guess, again, goes back historically when I first looked at the policies 15 years ago, and they were all outdated. And then we started contracting with BOCES to revise them. So I guess if we're working with BOCES to revise them, and I know we get updates on all the revisions. So the point that you bring forward now is there are ones that have not been revised, and it kind of falls on us to take that responsibility, which I think is a wise thing to do.
Yeah, and Mrs. Carey provided a little bit of information about the BOCES component. So she let me know that Erie One BOCES does send policy updates to the district clerk. The clerk then forwards it to the leadership team for review. When the leadership team completes the review process, they're updated with edits and then sent to the Board of Education for the first reading, then tabled, and then for our second reading. So that's the process that exists. And we do typically update 1 to 2 policies at least per meeting. But as we're all seeing, going through the manual, there are some that aren't touched, or that perhaps, as Dr. McCleary pointed out, could be reworded, because words do matter, so that they're specific to the needs of our district. So I'm glad to hear that. So what I think we'll do is for the next meeting, put it on the agenda and have more of a process of a proposal, what that work will look like. Okay. Is there any other items for committee of the whole? Thank you. Moving on to correspondence. I've been keeping track of all the emails that have been coming in. I do want to thank the community, as Dr. Brown Hall has shared, for making their wishes known. I've made sure to answer every email that I received up through yesterday. But if you sent it after I went to bed, or if you sent it today, I did not respond yet, and I will do so later this week. I will say that in the past, we received a majority of emails asking for parental choice, but that seems to have shifted the past 2 weeks. And the majority of emails that came in over the course of the last 2 weeks were asking the district to please enforce a mask mandate. I want to share, it's still a somewhat divided issue within the community, but I did see a shift in the correspondence that we received lately. We don't typically read letters at the table. However, we did get a group of medical doctors who are Williamsville parents who have sent a letter to the board and have asked for us to read it. We do not have a policy, speaking about policies, that speaks for us to, in favor of us reading it or not reading it. I personally, as president, don't want to start the precedent of reading the letter as myself reading the letter, because I think it's important as president that I maintain more of a balance. And I do respect everyone's viewpoint on this issue. However, I do feel that this letter is unique because it did contain 28 signatures from Williamsville medical providers who are also our parents. And so with that, I am going to call on Dr. McCleary, and she is going to read either an excerpt or the entire letter, whichever you so choose.
Thank you, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. It's actually probably easier to just go through the whole thing than to move around. Okay. Dear Dr. Brown Hall and Board of Education, we are writing as physicians and Williamsville Central School District parents to share our thoughts as we prepare for the 2021-22 school year. We work in a range of specialties and settings, but we have all been on the front lines of this pandemic and fully appreciate its many devastating effects. Although we all are weary, sadly, it is clear that this pandemic isn't over yet. We are extremely concerned about the recent increase in COVID cases due to the highly contagious Delta variant. We are frustrated by ongoing vaccine refusal and the delay of vaccine authorization for 5 to 11-year-olds. Because many of our children and immunosuppressed adults remain vulnerable to COVID, we must take a cautious approach to reopening this fall and be willing to shift strategies as we continue to learn about this virus and as the pandemic evolves. We wholeheartedly believe that in-person learning is best. The toll that isolation and distance learning had on children and their families has been enormous and saddening. We all share the goal of having students safely back in school full-time this fall. We commend the district's efforts last year, and you provided that layered mitigation. And you proved that layered mitigation efforts work. As physicians, we are strongly advocating for continued mandatory universal masking this fall to allow our students and district employees to return to school safely. The CDC and American Academy of Pediatrics have both issued guidelines calling for universal masking in schools. Masking, when combined with other layers of protection, will give our students the best chance to remain in school full-time with fewer illnesses and fewer disruptions. I take it back. I will skip a little bit here, talking about numbers. Next paragraph. Making masks optional has already failed in states with recent surges in COVID cases. Lamar County Schools in Mississippi, which began in-person classes on July 20th, has already been forced to close 2 schools and institute fully virtual instruction after 165 confirmed cases were reported within the first 4 days of the school year. Multiple other school districts have been forced to close and transition to virtual learning in other states due to confirmed cases within the schools. Of the largest school districts in the United States, 12 out of 20 will require masks at the beginning of the school year. It is far less disruptive for our children, academically and psychologically, to wear face masks than to be faced with another year of remote learning, frequent pivoting, and isolation from their school and classmates. Masks are a small inconvenience, but our children have been wearing them safely and effectively for the past year and a half. Masks have allowed them to interact and attend school while minimizing their health risks throughout this pandemic. There is extensive research and direct evidence to support their use to slow the spread of COVID. Final paragraph. As physicians, we implore you not to let a vocal minority of parents drown out the clear advice of our county's health experts for universal masking in schools. Please do not ignore the CDC and AAP guidelines and their strong recommendations for mandatory masking. We look forward to the day when vaccination rates improve, infection rates decline, and mask mandates will be unnecessary. Until then, we urge everyone eligible to get vaccinated and to please mask up for our children and our entire community. And again, I won't read the names of the physicians who have signed, but they all state that they are physicians and Williamsville parents.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. McCleary.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, Dr. Lemon, go ahead.
First, I don't think it's really that appropriate for you to have selected this letter. Not that the information is whatever, and I'm not pandering to the crowd. My view is that, again, it's never been a policy to read letters from people who aren't here about issues that are, could be considered controversial. Second, I mean, I don't have the letter in my hand, but to say, let's compare Williamsville to a school district in rural Mississippi or someplace in Mississippi. You know, I'm sure they have very good information, and I respect their ability to write it, and I respect, you know, it being brought here, but I just think it, in my mind, it's very one-sided, and it, whatever.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lippman, for your,
It could
for
have
your
been
comment.
for community expression,
Oh.
and they would have had 3 minutes for their statement, not 4 minutes or
Sir,
5
this
minutes.
is not your time. This
Well,
is not
it's
your
their
time.
time either.
Right.
That's crap.
All right, so we're moving on. Does anyone else have anything to share in their correspondence? And Dr. Lippman, to your point, you're correct that we don't have a policy regarding this. When we get into our policy groups, we can work on it, or we can work on updating our correspondence.
And it's not a, you know, critique of your choice.
Right.
Because
We did have a board member.
if I was
letter that
sitting
year.
in your chair, I might say, yeah, let's read this, but I might, I don't know.
Correct.
But,
And we did
so-
put the letter in board docs for everyone to be able to view it if they choose to. And I did explain the significance of why I allowed for it at this meeting. So we're going to go on. No,
We're not doing back.
we're not doing it.
Fourth. We are not doing, guys, we can't.
Someone like to make a motion
Can't do a board meeting.
to adjourn.
So read my letter next time.
And I'd like to hear what their names are. I'd like to hear what the.
Would someone like to make, it's listed in board docs and you can view it. You can go right to the district website. Would someone like to make a motion to recess the regular board meeting to conduct the goal setting work session? We're gonna take a 5-minute restroom break in that recess. Mrs. Poland, thank you. Mrs. Beeger, second. All in favor of our 5-minute recess before we start our goal setting? Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Back in 5.
Did it get cut off?
On my thing, I printed out the other day, so it's not done.
Might not been in there at the time
Yeah,
you
try to
printed it.
print it out.
All right. Someone like to make a motion, please, to return to regular session? Thank you, Mr. Biscaglia. Is there a second? And it shouldn't be regular session. It should be our goal setting workshop. Sorry about that. All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. So we are going to be looking at our district goals first. I don't know, are we pulling those, excuse me, are we pulling those ones up on the screen or no? No, okay, no problem. They're available in board docs. Dr. Brownhall, do you want to make any comments regarding the district goals before we vote on them?
I just want to say I appreciate the work of the leadership team and their teams looking at the district goals from last year, how they're revamped this year, what needs to continue, what needs to be enhanced moving forward, and the action steps that are available in WICS underneath. Knowing that the board members wanted an emphasis on the strategic plan, that is a goal in there. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a goal in there. One thing that I do want to highlight is what Dr. Balin was doing tonight. One of the instructional goals is to further develop and enhance opportunities for student learning, engagement, and innovation. And it was a direct showing this evening when she reviewed the mathematics update, how that is moving forward in the district. So I want to thank Dr. Balin for highlighting that, but also we are looking at these goals as an enhancement of last year and moving forward to this year under Mr. Scanzuzo's department, just realizing that we have over 1,000 students that remained on remote last year. So making sure that when students transition back in, we're looking for how we can support them and looking for key indicators of what support students may need. So that's all wrapped up in the district goals also. So I do want to thank Dr. Balin, Mr. Scanzuzo, Mr. Matursky contributed to many of these things. And you can't do anything goal setting or goal wise if it's not appropriately funded. And then Mr. McKenna and how we're looking at some new HR opportunities and how we do some HR things moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And I realized that I went out of order on the agenda. So we will hold off on voting on the district goals and we'll work on our board goals first, and then we'll go back and do our votes. I apologize, Mrs. Carey, for messing that up. And then when we get to our vote on that, you'll be able to ask questions regarding the feedback that Dr. Brownhall just gave us. So let's review the goals for the Board of Education. It is.
Okay.
You did it right. Did it right?
District goals is B, then Board of Education goes is C.
Oh, okay.
You were right.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and vote on them. I apologize. I'm looking at my script weird. All right, so
It's information for 22B, and then we do the voting in 23. You're awesome.
Right. So it's correct, right? Because 22B, we're reviewing it, and then in 23, we do the voting. Okay, so we're good. We'll hold off on the voting. So let's review the goals for the Board of Education. And I think we have a clicker around here, correct? Yep, you're good. Thank you. So let's see. Oh, goodness. Can I even see that? All right. So we're looking at our student learning and achievement goal. And it's okay. I can see it on my screen. So I'm good on my screen here. Does anyone want to change or edit the student learning and achievement goal part, the part that's above the chart? So it says the Williamsville Board of Education will promote improved learning and achievement for all students by supporting appropriate policies and providing resources based on available research and federal and state guidance. Are there any changes to the wording of that?
Beautiful.
Ms. Catherine Beck-Bogner.
I had suggested, and I thought it was in here, but apparently not, that we also add the word data, available data.
You said.
Oh, it's there, but it's not on here.
Yeah.
Okay. It's
there.
on
So
the
I'm
screen.
looking at-
It's not on our Chromebook. I
Oh.
apologize. Thank you.
There might be some discrepancy because I can't see the screen. So I have to look at my Chromebook. So if something's not consistent, just let me know. So it seems like we're in agreement of that. So let's look at our action steps. So we have Does someone want to read that off the screen because it doesn't match what's on?
I would be happy to read it. Yeah, sure. The first action says review student achievement data through reports at the board table, and the measures are approve and review monthly under consent agenda, special needs and student activities.
Oh, okay, I think it is the same. All right, any changes to that? All right.
Do you want me to continue to read through?
Yes, let's
Okay.
go down to number 3. then.
Okay.
Number 2.
Do you want number 2?
2,
Yeah.
sorry.
2, it says receive presentations on instructional programs, strategies, and supports designed to ensure high comparable performance for all learners and improve outcomes for lower performing students. We have several measures for that.
I can see all of those. Thank you. I think it does match what's on our computer, so that works well. Does anyone wish to offer edits to the second action step? Dr.
I mean,
Littman.
just a comment, and thank you. If we go back to the idea that everything has to be measurable,
And SMART goals.
I know when I taught writing lesson plans and student learning outcomes, every time I saw the word "and," I say, well, you're looking to measure 2 distinct items in one outcome. And I circled it, and I think I sent it forward that, we're looking at high comparable performance for all learners, and then we seem to add on improving outcomes for lower performing students. And I feel that maybe that second one should just be a separate goal that, what are we doing for the lower performing students? Because that is somewhat different than what we would do for, I guess the regular learners.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a suggestion. I just bring it forward for.
Yeah, I actually appreciate that because they're talking about all learners. So then why would we need to specify and improve outcomes for lower performing students? Lower performing students is part of all learners. Does anyone feel like it would be okay to just end the goal after all learners with an emphasis on inclusion, perhaps? Or should we keep it as it is?
I mean, I just feel we have an obligation to all students, and especially
But our goals
the
set.
students who need extra help, extra services, or whatever they might need. And that should be one of our missions, is to say there are students who need more help, and that's one of our responsibilities.
But improve outcomes for all.
I'm a big advocate for, for last year, I've been saying, learning loss, look out for, our lowest learners, especially the ones that are just on the cusp. But I also know I don't want to single out and say lower performing students. It just, to me, it sounds like it just does not sound educationally correct to me.
Yeah, well-
by saying all learners, you are hitting on the fact that we are incorporating the lowest level, your
And the highest.
cusp and your highest level. I just don't, in
That's
my
fair.
mind, to me, it doesn't sound
Yeah.
educationally correct to say low performing students. I don't want to single someone out.
Yeah, I feel the
That
same way
makes
about that
Yeah.
terminology.
No, that does make good sense.
I think we could stop at learners. And when we look at the second column there, we could be more specific about the kind of information that we get on certain types of learners.
Okay, sounds good. So let's end it at all learners.
Can you just call them diverse learners because they are different? So
I like that. So how could we include that in there, Mr. Dr. Singh?
For diverse learners, just take out all, put in diverse.
Okay, yeah, I think that's good. Let's take it all, put in diverse. That solves that.
That does what we need.
Yep, that's great.
Looks good.
All right, thank you. And remind me, Mrs. Carey, are we approving the action steps too tonight? We are, okay. So okay, excellent, thank you. So we're looking at the actions that are listed for the second indicator. Is there anything that anyone wants to approve or recommend? Because remember that this is the work that the board does, so we don't want to confuse it with the work that the district does. But these are the responsibilities that we have at the board table, how we are able to influence the outcomes for diverse learners.
I mean, I just have a question.
Sure.
Does the district development plan have anything in common with the strategic plan?
Does the strategic plan have anything in common with the
Development plan.
district plan? Well, it will. The strategic plan hasn't been released yet.
Okay.
So that, and I'm not part of that team, so I don't want to speak too much about it, but that is the basis of it, is that the strategic plan then sets the vision
Mhm.
for what our district plans will look like for this year and for years to come. And it's always a working document, so it can be changed at any time, which is actually true of this as well, the living, breathing document. So throughout the year, we can revisit it, we can add to it as needed. Okay, so which gives us a little bit of grace so that we don't have to be so like tied down to what we put. All right? Are we set to move on to the third item there? Okay, so the number 3 says approve and monitor the district's professional development plan and teacher resources. Anyone wish to modify that? As actions, we have review and approve professional development plan, which happens during our August meeting, and to participate in school building visits. In the school building visits, the way we formatted the guidelines really does align with having the focus be on the students and the teaching and learning. So that when we're walking around, if we hear a presentation on a math lab, then when we do a visit at North, we can say, can you take us to the math lab? You know, so like those things go hand in hand, that we should be able to then see and observe what we hear about, so that it's not just talk, but that we walk the walk.
Absolutely.
Right? So before we go on to our next goal, what we did last year was a different board member chose a goal that they took responsibility for monitoring throughout the year. And I know, Dr. Lippman, you asked that in an email, like, how do we monitor this? So we use the super eval system to keep track. It's actually really user-friendly. It lets you input any work that we complete throughout the year, so that when we do our mid-year review, we have all of our evidence that be in line with APPR, all of our evidence or artifacts to support what the criteria was and what our goal was.
But I remember that from attending a board meeting last year and watching some of the people on the board presenting the information about what had been accomplished, and I was very impressed by the board members speaking about these goals and the way you had laid that all out.
Right. So it's not just, I think I get tired of hearing my own voice. So it's nice to have other people talk. So is there someone that would like to take on this goal? I'm happy to do it. Are you comfortable if I take on this goal for the year?
I believe Mrs. Van Sice had done it last year. I don't know if she still had any interest.
I'll check in with her. If she doesn't want it, then I'll take it, okay? Let's move on to our second goal. I think we're good with this one. So our next goal has to do with student health and safety. I'm going to scroll down on my page. And sorry, I forgot I had the clicker. I could have changed that. So student health and safety, the Williamsville Board of Education will prioritize resources necessary to support the physical, mental, social, and emotional health and safety of students throughout the 2021-2022 school year. Is everyone satisfied with that? Okay, thank you. As our action steps, we have review, update, and approve district policy related to student health and safety. I know we've definitely spent a lot of time on that this past year, and I believe we will again, since we are still living in a pandemic.
I wonder if for measures, if we should add review district discipline report as far as, reviewing, if that fits there.
Yep, I think that would be appropriate.
So under measures for number 1.
That is the bullet point. Thank you, Mrs. Speaker.
Sure. Review district discipline report.
Yeah.
And I realize the next bullet says receive reports, but up there it says review. Oh.
I almost wonder if we don't need the second item of receive reports and presentations, because isn't that part of what we're doing under number 1?
A little
Seems
redundant.
a little redundant. So perhaps we could eliminate number 2 and then just move the bullet up of receive reports during superintendent's community update. So it's all encompassed in item 1. We're not being redundant. I see nods. I think we're good with that.
Yes.
How does the board feel about adding another bullet that we either review, or we could use another word, the COVID recommendations?
Oh, good, yeah.
That sound good? Yes.
Great.
So, frequently review COVID recommendations.
Do we want to,
Like
we want to
recommendations?
stipulate from where or like?
It's pretty vague when you say COVID recommendation.
Yeah. Right. Well, what would you like to see in that? I look for anything related to schools, obviously.
Yeah, but I was thinking, do we put state, county, CDC, AP, specify those things so it's not just.
Right. I gotcha.
It should say guidelines, not
Guidelines.
recommendations, or not.
Yeah.
Material.
Receive and review.
COVID-19 guidance.
Guidance, yeah.
Recommendations. Erie County Department of Health, New York State Department of Health, CDC, and AAP.
I think that's really important if we agree to have that as one of our goals, because that's us as a board taking a stand that that's what we're choosing to use as our facts. Like that's where we're getting our facts from. We respect that, we live in a world of alternative facts. We respect everyone's viewpoint and right to choose what they believe. But as a board, we're going to follow this. Is everyone satisfied with that? I want everyone to be comfortable with it. So if anyone has anything that they wish to change on this, please let me know. And we can also bring it back anytime. You just have to request that we bring it back, and we can bring it back and revamp it.
So just to clarify, we're just receiving and reviewing it. We're not adopting anything based on that.
Well, because technically that would fall under the work of the superintendent. It's under, we already have a policy that gives our superintendent the authority to follow those recommendations.
Kind of for example, if they make vaccinations for 5 to 11-year-olds in December and kids are starting to get it, and then masks are suggested or guidance, then that's when we can review it and say,
correct.
Dr. Brown, let's review.
Yeah, because it changes.
Dr. Brown Hall.
Just like we did for summer school, right? Because we started
Yes,
the year one way, and then we got guidance after summer school started, and so we followed that guidance.
Right.
We said, our stand was always we're going to follow the guidance. So when the guidance allowed for the students to remove their masks, we accepted that.
Right.
Okay. All right. So then the next item would be, okay, you took off 2. So then 2 actually becomes advocate for resources necessary to support the physical, mental, social, and emotional health and promote diversity, inclusion, and belonging of our students. How do we feel about that? Dr. Littman?
No, I mean, that looks fine. I was just, maybe I'm jumping ahead. I was looking at the measures
We
that
need
we
one.
might want to add, so I'll wait till we get that far. I'm sorry.
You want to suggest a measure for that?
No, Mrs. Pullen will, no. Yeah, I do. I have some. Because again, we look at the social workers we have, the school counselors we have, the psychologists we have. Is there some way to kind of show, what they're doing as part of?
I think receiving the student wellness report should be one of those.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
Let's list that as a measure. Forgive me, Mr. Skinders, I forget which month we do that in.
In June, May or June.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Because then we have
It's
the
in May, but I think we moved it to June. I think I did one in April and it was just so close.
we also approve, adopting the district safety plan, that we have that listed under number 1. So I think that we don't need to list that twice.
No, yeah. I think
receive reports on mental health, right?
that's all inclusive, isn't it? Yeah. Right, that might be just enough.
Okay. Does anyone have another bullet they want to add to that? Ms. Kazmierzak-Bogner?
Isn't necessarily an addition, but I think I'm the one that had this goal last year, and I had added the advocate for resources necessary because we had done that with our legislators
Yes.
that year, and that is what prompted that as an action. It wasn't an original action when we first had the goal.
How about we have a bullet point of participate in advocacy through ECASB?
Right.
CASB.
Yep, Erie County Association of School Boards, yep. And I'll be the liaison on the ESB legislative team. And is there a separate advocacy team, Dr. McCleary?
Not really.
Not really. There was, last year we had, I think, a board member that did some additional advocacy work through that organization, if I recall.
I think that there's something with New York State, the
I was gonna say,
state one.
I'm the state advocate, but
Got
we
it.
haven't done anything yet, so,
That's going to be very infrequent.
Okay.
Give you time.
yeah.
Although
So if we want to add the state,
Add and Nisba. So we have ESASB and Nisba, NYS. SBA. Perfect. All right. Does anyone wish to add anything to our student health and safety goal? Dr. Lippman, go ahead.
And again, I'll see if anybody agrees with that. But I've noted, nutrition is a very valued part of the whole existence, and it's what our dinner time, I think. But the idea is, should we have some kind of goal in this area and action that looks at the nutrition of our students? But again, that's what other people think.
Well, we do receive the school nutrition report every month.
Yes.
So we could add that as a bullet.
That's physical.
If you're hungry, you can bite the bubble.
Yeah. Board meeting.
Okay.
Under number one.
Is it under number one or number? Oh yeah, okay, I'll back up to number one. The bullet would be receive school nutrition report at monthly board meetings. Is that the child nutrition? Is that the correct terminology, Mr. Matursky?
Yeah, we also provide you the annual report in May, nutrition and fitness report. And that really does go back to the policy, and that will deal more strictly with nutritional.
Right, because the other part is the funding.
Correct.
So the receive child nutrition report, is that what we're calling it? Nutrition and fitness report. So we can eliminate the other one because the other one is just monetary.
you want to make that plural because that comes every month.
The nutrition and fitness one is only once during the year.
Okay.
So we're taking out the other
Monthly
one.
ones, I thought we could just combine it with an S, but maybe not.
So it really should be receive school child nutrition and fitness report, because there's only one that they receive for that.
Right.
Should-
Correct. So
that's
take
all.
the S off of report.
But then you need another bullet.
For the monthly?
Well, I think we were gonna take away the monthly one because the monthly one only shows us what money comes in and what money goes out. And it's gonna essentially be
Yeah, in the next-
because we're gonna get it paid for by the federal government.
No,
Is that right?
That's fine. It's just that we had talked about it. So I wanted to make sure we.
Mr. Matursky educated
Put
me.
away one or the other.
Any other things to add for student health and safety? Is there a board member that would like to be responsible for monitoring it this year? Maybe we can have someone different look at it this year than last year, so we're switching them up. I'll jump up at once. Dr. Lippman, would you want to be responsible?
Yes,
for
I
monitoring
will.
this?
I'd be glad to.
Thank you so much. All right, let's look at our next one, which is our board, district, and community engagement. Oh, thank you for doing this on the clicker. The Williamsville Board of Education will continue to strengthen communication and relationships with the entire school community, including students, families, administrators, faculty and staff, residents, businesses, legislators, and community agencies. And we did hear at the listening tours that communication was still an area that our community wanted us to focus on. So I do believe it's important that we keep it as a goal. It is a work in progress. Does anyone wish to restate the pieces above the chart? I think it's pretty spot on. So as an action step, we have serve as school board liaisons for PTSA, Williamsville Education Foundation, SEPSA, ECASB, Nisba, Superintendent Community Council, SIAC meetings, and correspondence. And we have measures there to show how we hold ourselves responsible for that. Does anyone wish to add or amend the first action or its measures? Dr. Lippman, go ahead.
Well, it's just, I put a question mark by, serve as school board liaisons, and it says in correspondence.
Yeah,
I think that's part of your responsibility as the board president. So I didn't know if correspondence is separate or it just doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I would prefer to put the period after the word meetings.
And I almost feel that correspondence is actually a different action. While that really hasn't been an action before, I can already think of a couple examples. The letter that you just sent to the community, Mrs. Leatherbarrow, from the board, sharing how you can partake in board meetings. That's something we haven't done before. So if we can add correspondence
as a third action,
as another action.
Oh, as a
I was going to say.
As a fourth one, because then also like around budget time, you send out a letter to the community. So there's a couple examples of when the board actually does share information directly with the community.
Yep. So we could have an item 4 and another column. And how do we want to word that?
Engage in correspondence with community stakeholders and written correspondence. Does that make sense? Because
initiate, how about initiate correspondence?
Yes.
Because that way it's like it's showing that it's coming from
action.
Sorry, it's coming from us. We're initiating it. And I actually did receive an email back after Mr. Filipowski forwarded my letter. Thanking me for sending that and I'm giving their viewpoint.
Perfect.
So Mr. Filipowski, we're going to say engage.
Or number 4. Or number 1 action. So up above on slide 5, if you can add another row and call it number 4.
Initiate correspondence to members of the community. And then action under measures, you could put welcome back letter from the board president.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I can't really judge whether it was well received, but I'm glad that you suggested I did it because I think it's a really kind gesture to welcome people back to the school year and to let them know that we're excited for their kids to return to school. So I appreciated you offering that to me.
You also write a letter to teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week.
Yep, recognize teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week.
The administration.
And student achievement. And student achievement. If somebody does exceptional thing.
Oh yeah, we do. Well, that's a good point. We recognize students, but that could be a sub.
Where's that?
I don't know if that comes under correspondence because we do that at board meetings, right? But so let's put a pin in that one for a second. I just want to finish this one. We also send out letters during budget season to encourage our participation in the voting process. I think that's appropriate. So going back to Dr. Singh's point, we do recognize successes. We celebrate successes throughout our district. Does the board feel that that would be an example of communication, or is that something that falls under a different category?
I think it's a different action under engagement. It doesn't really fit in any of the other actions, but it is something that we do.
Do you feel it's an action that relates to community engagement?
I mean, it doesn't have to be a board letter. Even the superintendent can send out something like that.
Right. So that would fall, like if that's what we're talking about, that happens under district goals.
Okay.
So this focuses on just the things that we do as board members.
Yeah, I was gonna say, some of the recognitions almost under student learning and achievement kind
Right.
of.
I was thinking that as well. So Mr. Filipowski, we're going to slide back up to the first slide on student learning and achievement. I'm going to go back up too, because I think it's really good that we add that.
Oh.
Come on, screen. Oh, I love that you're a touch screen. So if you could add a fourth column, Chromebook. If you could add a fourth column to the first one, we could say celebrate student and staff achievements. And the bullet point could be monthly board recognition and board acknowledgments.
It's two separate measures.
That's two separate bullets. Monthly board recognition, monthly board acknowledgments. Thank you, Dr. Singh, for that. I'm going to slide back down. Board, district, and community engagement. Is everyone satisfied with us?
Question.
Absolutely.
On number 4 about initiating correspondence. So the only, maybe that's not the right word, but the goal or the action there is to initiate correspondence. You're not talking about
Oh, that's a good point.
the
So how about if we add
thousands of
that?
ones that you answer. And
Thank you. I earned Wonder Woman socks last year for all the emails that I sent to parents. So for item 4, where it says initiate correspondence to the to members of the community, why don't we extend that sentence? Initiate correspondence to members of the community and send responses to those who contact the board.
Okay.
you probably could think about
Or should we put it as a
just
measure?
initiate and respond, maybe.
You just say correspond with members of the community as the action, and put send, respond to emails as the measure.
Yeah, measure could be.
Written correspondence. I think written is important.
Yes.
Send written correspondence to members of the community.
Yes.
I like having an action word as the first word.
Yes. And then respond to stakeholder email.
So under measures, Mr. Filipowski, for that, we're going to add another bullet. Respond to individuals who contact the board.
Yeah.
I think that that's appropriate. Thank you, Dr. McCleary, for pointing that out. We are stronger together. Anybody else want to add to this? Their eyelids are starting to get heavy. And is there a board member at this time that would like to take ownership of this goal and be responsible for monitoring it throughout the year? Thank you, Dr. McCleary.
Thank you.
And we are going to move on to our next one, which is budget development and fiscal oversight. The Williamsville Board of Education will efficiently and responsibly allocate resources in alignment with district educational goals and priorities using a transparent process that allows for community input and support. Are we happy with that? Yes. I am too. We have our listed actions. I don't believe anyone suggested any edits to these. So instead of going one by one, does anyone?
I actually did.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Kathleen Bochner.
No, I mean, they're on here already,
Oh,
but
they are.
But they were new.
Thank you. You want to point out which ones you added?
Well, I had added the using a transparent process that allows for community input and support to the actual statement, and then the number 3 and number, or is there a number 4? Okay, yeah, number 3 and number 4 are new.
Oh, I see. There was 2 number 3s on the
here.
computer.
So provide opportunities for the community to review and provide input on the 2022-2023 budget development, and provide, what's the next one?
Why are we talking about
Present.
22-23?
Because that's where we set the like we're talking about the budget process. So we set next year's budget during that time.
Okay, I'm looking at the measure where it talks about the 2020 budget will be posted on the district website.
Oh, where are we?
Under,
I mean, should be proposed budget, not budget.
We oversee the current budget, and then we provide support in planning for the next year's budget. Tell me which exact measure you're questioning.
so the second measure where it says 2022-23 budget will be posted on the district website. But if you're talking about goals for this school year, that can't be a measure for a goal for this school year, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, we can just remove that bullet then, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll remove that first bullet.
And do we need the word preliminary in the various things when you talk about budget?
Budget development timeline, budget adoption, budget hearing.
Yeah, present preliminary budget is what you're saying?
Right, where do we have that wording? Is that above the chart?
All right, now number 2, we're back to 21, 22. So we're doing 21, 22 and 22, 23
Correct, because we,
in the same.
No, because you're overseeing the budget. And then the next bullet is the opportunity. Yeah.
But won't,
but it's not the budget development that we're overseeing for this year, because that's already set. So let's take away,
already
oversee
adapted the budget.
2021-22 budget, period.
Development process.
Let's eliminate development process.
because it's already been developed.
Correct, and passed. We don't have to go back in history.
Oh, yeah, so all those measures are wrong, and all this.
Oh,
Measures
Should we have
match them.
22, 23 also?
well then, should we just
Just
switch
get
the year and then keep the measures?
Yeah. Well, if you oversee the budget for this year, I mean, that's your fiscal responsibility.
Correct.
To oversee the budget,
Yeah.
right?
So I think the bullet point would be review monthly cash reports.
Yeah.
And approve monthly business items.
I think all the bullets right now were correct for 22, 23 budget development. And we need another action that states what 2 says right now.
Exactly.
So I think, Nick, if you can change this back to 22, 23 budget development, and then we can add a row above.
That's what I was going to say too, that
So, because all these measures match.
That makes sense.
Yes. And then after number 1, 1.5 could be oversee 21, 22 budget.
The bullets are the.
Right.
Monitor perhaps instead of
Monitor, I think makes more sense than oversee. Yes.
monitor district expenditures for the 2021-2022 budget.
about expenditures and revenues.
Okay, that sounds good. And for the bullet point, we can say approve consent agenda business items at monthly meetings.
We might have to do this in the next 4 meetings.
Approve.
Might want to improve it, but.
Next year, do that next year.
Monthly.
And we can go back to this, so whoever is choosing to monitor the school as the year, like we do a lot more. I'm sure Mr. Maturski is laughing at us right now. Like we do so much work in this area. We're just not verbalizing it very well. So we can definitely add more bullets because we do a lot more work than just approve the business items. I think that's he's smiling. It's a very general way of saying what we do.
That's what we do.
Without me totally messing it up. Are we happy with that?
Yes.
Is there a board member that wants to take responsibility for monitoring our budget goal? Then they'll jump up at once.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Ms. Katzman.
I teach social studies.
I teach social
Yeah.
studies. That's-
This would be number 5 then?
Mhm.
Yeah. Right, so it's just turn in 5.
But you know what? Then go back to the measures. Don't cross out that measure. Right, because it makes sense.
Yes.
How do you not press?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So, our embracing community diversity, I think, Dr. Singh, you pointed out a really good, something good in email about perhaps we just call this diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because that's
Yeah.
really, we're not just talking about embracing diversity, we're also talking about being mindful of diversity when we make decisions around equity and inclusion. And DEI is the terminology that the state uses, so I think it's consistent if we use DEI.
So we'll change the actual name of the goal.
We'll change the name of the goal.
Yes. I wrote that down.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. They're just trying to update something, so we're going to get, because she's updating it in board docs as well, so I'm going to just hold off for 1 minute.
Okay.
Just let me know, Mr. Filipowski, when you're ready. There's no rush.
They're really nice. Yeah, I want to see it.
It sounds actually really good. Sounds awesome.
Oh, how do you turn this thing off?
Right. This is Carrie too. It can always be updated after we approve it. No worries. So we're moving on to our final goal, and we're going to rename it Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Yes.
You need to start with a verb. The other ones start with verbs. Or
Supporting. Should we use a adjective?
The other ones don't start with verbs, actually.
Okay.
The titles,
Yeah,
none
because
of the
student
titles.
learnings, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just leave it.
Mhm.
So does anyone wish to change the wording there? I know we added the word belonging, and I love that.
Well, just.
Go ahead, Dr. Lippman, I'm sorry.
Teresa said, go ahead.
Oh, I say just, in the opening statement, we say in the third line, by embracing diversity, whatever, but again, the title is, equity and inclusion. So should we add those two words into that statement just for consistency or?
The Board of Education will encourage and support instructional and leadership practices that foster.
Right, diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of it.
Oh, okay. By
So just adding those two words. So it's
We've got belonging in there, which really is the bigger sense of inclusion. It's the next step.
I'm fine with adding those two words though, just to make it consistent. I don't think it makes it redundant.
You know, we're gonna add all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Just a grammatical thing too. It says.
Go ahead,
social-
Mr. Viscalia.
Social, economic, cultural, linguistic, intellectual, blah, 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 and religious backgrounds and sexual orientation should just be comma religious backgrounds, comma and.
You're right.
Correct, thank you.
Sorry,
No, you're right.
You
In
said
front
you
of religious,
that
take
later.
off the word and.
I'm reading my essays right now, trying to,
said you taught
Got
social.
those extra words.
You really teach English.
you get an 85.
No.
No, that's
That one's Dave.
No, that
No,
comes
it should
out.
take out, yeah.
Should be.
Oh,
Take out and,
Take out
yeah.
yes, you're correct.
sexual
Oh.
orientation
There was two hands.
and
Then there should be a comma,
comma.
There.
a comma after gender identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unless you.
Well, no.
No.
No, you're right. No, you don't need it.
Supposed
You don't need the
together.
comma.
Yeah.
Now you're good.
Yeah.
Take it, okay.
But the and goes before gender.
Gender, yes, that's what I'm trying, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
We all passed
There it is.
I'll pass these around.
Sorry.
Can I just,
Well, that was a great ELA lesson.
It was. Go ahead, Dr. Littman.
well, yeah, I'm happy it's a title change. That's in my notes, but, I keep reading it and underlining words and I just need to make sure I understand, and maybe because it's after 10 o'clock, I'm not as understanding as I might be at 10 in the morning. But we talk about, we encourage and support instructional and leadership practices. Okay, and then at the end, it talks about students. So I guess reading all of this, I don't know, maybe someone just needs to give me a 20-second explanation of why I'm a little bit confused.
How about if we take out that part of it and we
Yep.
say the Williamsville Board of Education will encourage and support
Practices?
a safe, welcoming, and
Yeah.
stigma-free environment. Blah, 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 blah.
Because I think of, instruction leadership as putting emphasis on the teachers
Correct.
and our leadership team and the administration. And
Good work.
that's, that's taken away from what we're supposed to be doing.
Great
Oh,
point.
That's a really great point.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with this group, we should be good with these goals for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Any
Okay.
changes under action steps?
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Littman, go
Well,
ahead.
no, just
please.
just under number 2, we talk about professional development and recruitment strategies. But I'm not sure what we're recruiting if we're stepping into Dr. McKenna's role of something. So what was the point that the board previously was trying to make about recruitment?
It's monitoring, right? It's monitoring
Monitoring, you're
the diversity initiatives that include professional development opportunities and recruitment
Recruitment.
strategies. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Well, I wonder if you need to specify that then, when you say,
I almost wonder if we can take it out.
Take it out.
What if we just say monitor the current district diversity initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives?
Yeah, that's simpler. Because we don't have a handle on the.
I mean, it's almost the same as goal 1 or action 1 if we really are looking at it.
well,
Couldn't you take it out and completely number 2 and then make that statement move over to a measure of number 1?
How does the board
Yeah.
feel about that?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Because we have review, update, review, update.
No, I guess it's
It
different.
doesn't fall completely under,
I like
Yeah.
under policies. That's true.
Yeah, I'd keep it,
I
just
think
take
we
out
should
that.
keep it separate because it's not.
Yeah, I was reading it differently.
In number 1, do we have to add the word 1? Or add the word and, review, update, and, oh, okay,
No.
never mind.
approve policies and attend
Review,
events.
update, approve policies, and attend events. Okay, got it.
I don't know if we need a comma after events.
You don't.
No.
The comma after events can
Be back. They'll be coming.
Did foster a safe, belonging, and stigma-free environment? Does that sound correct? How about we say inclusive?
I mean, belonging
A
includes
safe, inclusive, and stigma-free environment?
I mean, the word belonging is very broad.
I know, I'm just wondering if it's the right use of the word in that sentence.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Grammatically or syntactically, I suppose.
Inclusive and stigma.
I think having a word that ends in ing doesn't.
The original word there was welcoming. So I think you're right. I think that would be the place to put inclusive.
Okay.
I
I like that we have belonging though in the overarching goal.
Right.
Because it is a strong word. So we're gonna make that inclusive. Comma. All right. Do we want to add anything about the strategic plan under the action steps? Because doesn't the strategic plan deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Wouldn't that be maybe a measure for number 2?
For number 2, from the monitoring piece, board members will serve on the strategic planning committee. Board members will serve on the strategic planning committee. So measure for number 2.
Is this where we would also, whether it's a number 1 or number 2, I'm not sure, but is this where we would also look at the demographics of our school district in terms of some of those descriptors that we've used, ethnicities, economic backgrounds, percentage of Title I,
I think we
percentage of,
kind of did that under student achievement.
okay.
Because this is, we don't want to like overlap this, even though there is overlap.
I mean, I think what she means is the different schools have different definition of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So one school might need something different from another school might need.
You know, we've got
achievement.
elementary school that has 25% free and reduced lunch, and we have schools that have none. You know, so there's all kinds of diversity there that
That's why
School specific.
that's why this goal is written the way it is. I remember putting this together last year and thinking of the different ways that our students are diverse. Because it can mean gender to one person. It can mean, it can mean economic background to someone else, or religion, or
And I think there is a common definition for diversity that was explained in one of your recent reports. And I know that work is being done to educate building principals and staff it within buildings so that everyone is using common language with common definitions.
Yeah, that's important.
So that there is a agreement about what it means when we say diversity.
It's probably one of the more important.
We could add monitoring the professional learning plan, because there is work under the professional learning plan that deals with this issue. Sure, if we wanted to add it as a measure. Is everyone okay with that?
Number 2?
Yeah. Add a bullet for number 2.
I'm not sure.
Receive report from professional learning plan. Professional learning plan.
What will those reports look like?
Well, at the end of the year, Dr. Balin always reports a summary of the work that went on in each
courses that have been offered.
in all the courses. She provides a very lengthy document to us that shows, basically what we paid for, right? Because we pay a lot of money for our professional learning, and it encompasses the different. I mean, Ms. Dr. Balin can say this.
You'll get it twice. You got the initial framework tonight, and then we will be bringing any updates to you as necessary. It usually is mid-year.
Right.
and it encompasses our structures, our CTLE, anything that we choose to add at the time will be highlighted in any updated information.
Yep. So I don't know, we could add the word progress to that, but I think
It might get complicated because the professional learning plan includes items that aren't technically diversity, equity,
Right. That's true.
inclusion.
do you want to remove it or keep it?
I just think the wording needs to.
Can someone suggest that? Suggest a modification then?
Receive report
From professional learning plan,
with
specific or focused on.
DEI.
Okay, specific to DEI. Thank you. I'm satisfied with this. Does anyone else wish to add edits? And please remember that this is a working document, so when you look at it with a fresh set of eyes, like Dr. Lynn pointed out, like if you will look at it tomorrow at 10 a.m. and you have some new ideas, we can bring it back next month and add to it. Okay, is that good? Is there someone that would like to oversee the work of the board? Dr. Singh is volunteering to oversee the work of the board for diversity, equity, and inclusion for this year. So thank you, Dr. Singh. All right, are we ready to go back to our regular meeting and close things up?
Yeah.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the goal setting work session? Thank you, Mrs. Beeger. Second, Mr. Biscaglia. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. So we're back to where we already were. I bet you didn't even realize you left. Would someone like to make a motion to return to regular session? Dr.
Get back to work.
Littman, thank you. Is there a second?
It worked so hard.
Biscaglia, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We already discussed our district goals and we overly discussed our board goals. Would someone like to make a motion to adopt the 2021-22 district goals as presented? Ms. Poland, thank you. Ms. Beeger, second. Am I going too fast, Mrs. Carey? I'm sorry.
We have to move quickly.
Any discussion, additional discussion on the district goals? Dr. Singh.
I mean, I just did have in the district beliefs that we have on
the belief statement, right?
I thought we should include a statement that talks about diversity.
Yeah, so when we initially talked about starting our strategic planning process, we pointed out that the last time these belief statements were written was the year I graduated from high school. And so I don't want us as a board to do that because that's the work that's collaborative from the strategic planning process. So as a result of the strategic planning process, all of the stakeholders have buy-in into what it is we believe as a community regarding the education of our children. But I agree with you, they need updating because I'm old. Okay. So all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. And thank you for all of the work on the district goals to all of our assistant superintendents. And now we will move to the adoption of our board goals. Would someone like to make a motion, please, to adopt the 2021-2022 board goals as currently presented? Dr. Littman, thank you. Mrs. Beeger, second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. And thank you for our work on that because we all contributed to that. So we all own it together. All right. Our next scheduled board meeting is September 14th. If we have to have something in between, we'll let you know. Is there a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Dr. Singh, second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Stay safe and be well.